I'd like to call to order the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for Thursday, April 7th. If everybody please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hoorah.
Thank you very much. Natalie, would you please call the roll?
Member Hubbard.
Here.
Member Garza.
Here.
Member Peters.
Here.
Member Estrada.
Here.
Member Dugan.
Here.
Vice Chairman Benedict.
Here.
Chairman Miller.
Here. Full house. All right. Director, do we have any changes to the agenda this evening?
No changes, Mr. Chair.
All right. So then at this time, hopefully everybody got a chance to review the minutes from last meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the minutes. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right. So newer to the Planning and Zoning Commission, we have a consent agenda. So all items listed with an asterisk are considered routine matters and will be enacted by one motion and one roll call vote on the commission by the commission. There will be no separate discussion in regards to these unless any commission member and or member of the public would like to remove something from the agenda. And so at this time, I will open it up, and if anybody would like to remove anything from the agenda, the consent agenda. Seeing nobody, we'll move forward with the consent agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right. So, moving on to new business. So it looks like we've got a little bit of a crowd here this evening, which is always exciting. So, just so everybody knows, what we will end up doing is staff will present each agenda item. From there, the commission will get the opportunity to ask questions of staff, get any clarification. Once that's complete, we will invite the applicant and or their representative to come forward. They will be able to add any additional information, provide any answers that the commission may have specific to the applicant. And then once that's complete, we will open it up to the public. So the public will get the opportunity to speak on the agenda item that you are here for. The only thing that we ask is that you keep it within the 3-minute time frame, as we've got a number of agenda items, and try and keep things brief, as well as if somebody has brought something up, to try and make sure that we have unique items. If there are specific questions, we'll take note of them. And then once the public portion is done, we will hopefully be able to bring back either the applicant and or staff to answer any of those questions. So you won't get it answered while you're at the podium, but the goal will be that we get hopefully everybody's questions or concerns addressed throughout the public hearing process. So with that, I will move on to new business. For the first agenda item, to hold the public hearing to consider forwarding a recommendation for approval to the City Council for a request by Mitchell Horn for a zone change DSA-22-00001. Mr. Horn.
Good evening, Commissioners. Michelle Horn is requesting a zone change from urban ranch to general industrial I-2 for approximately 204 acres of land, generally located north of the Courtson Road alignment and west of Burris Road alignment. You can see it highlighted on your screen. It's north of Frito-Lay. The general plan has it in the manufacturing industry category. The existing zoning is urban ranch. Proposed zoning is I-2, general industrial. When looking at the criteria for a zone change, we looked at it's in conformance with the general plan. The 3 items that we look at are listed below, are all covered in your staff report. We're just going to cover one tonight, and that's that the action is consistent with the general plan, including the goals, policies, and other applicable elements. And I've highlighted goal MI5, which is encourage appropriate and responsible industrial development in appropriate locations. As mentioned, this is located just north of the Frito-Lay, and it's just west of the city's wastewater facility. It's an appropriate location for manufacturing industry. I do want to point out that a lot of the site is located within the 100-year floodplain. However, due to the fact that the land is proposed to be industrial zoning category, it is feasible to construct projects within that area. They would just have to meet certain design standards as outlined in our Title 15 of our city code. In regards to notification, we met or exceeded all notification efforts. We did not receive any comments on this proposal. In conclusion, staff recommends the commission forward a recommendation of approval of the zone change request from urban ranch to general industrial to city council with the following conditions, and that's our standard condition for right-of-way. Can I answer any questions?
Do we have any questions for staff? No? All right. Then at this time, I would invite the applicant and/or their representative if they would like to add anything to this agenda item. Seeing nobody, I will open it up to the public. Would anybody from the public like to speak to this agenda item? Seeing nobody, I'll close the public portion, bring it back to the commission.
Mr. Chairman,
Member Peters.
I would like to recommend approval to the City Council for the request for a zone change on DSA-21-00243, sorry.
Oh, hang on, wrong one.
ESA.
22-0001.
He said 2-1.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yep, that's all right.
All right.
We got a lot of papers up here.
Yeah, DSA-22-00001 from Urban Ranch to General Industrial I-2 to the City Council with the following conditions that are listed in A of the staff recommendation.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion and a second to forward a recommendation of approval. Any discussion? Hearing none. Natalie, would you please call the roll?
Member Hubbard,
Yes.
Member Garza,
Yes.
Member Peters,
Aye.
Member Estrada,
Yes.
Member Dugan,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Benedict,
Yes.
Chairman Miller.
Yes.
Got these two.
All right, next agenda item, hold the public hearing in consideration forward a recommendation of approval to City Council for request by American Development Corporation for a zone change, DSA-21-00265.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. This is a zone change request for property located on the, one second. Located on the east side of Hacienda Road, south of Florence Boulevard. It's essentially where Hancock Trail terminates at Hacienda. The property in question is about 8.7 acres, and it's currently zoned urban ranch. In the urban ranch zone, single-family residential development is allowed on 1.25 acre minimum size lots, as well as agricultural activities. Also permitted in the current zoning would be cell towers if at a height of 28 feet and under. With the approval of a conditional use permit, uses such as schools, churches, and manufactured home sites, as well as cell towers over 28 feet tall, are also permitted. The maximum height would otherwise be 28 feet in that zone district, and setbacks vary depending on the use. Approximately 13 years ago, there was a school approved with a conditional use permit on this site for a maximum of 520 students, but that didn't end up coming to fruition. The proposed zone district, it would rezone that urban ranch designation and instead designate it as a PAD. That's a planned area development zone. PAD zone districts are a customized zoning, and the qualifications for it is it has to have at least 5 acres, and an applicant can propose uses and development standards specific for that site. On this 8.7 acre area, the proposed PAD is to accommodate a storage facility, which would allow RV storage, self-storage, and ancillary associated uses. The maximum height proposed for this PAD would be 35 feet. However, on an upcoming slide that I'll show you, on their conceptual site plan, the proposed buildings are actually well under that. The proposed setbacks would be 33 feet from the front property line, and then 15 feet from all the other property lines if the buildings are up to 25 feet tall. If the buildings ranged from 25 to 35 feet tall, the 33-foot front setback would be the same. However, the sides and the rear setback would be the same setback as the height of the building. When considering PADs, this is the review criteria that gets evaluated, and the staff report goes into an analysis of all of these. I just want to highlight a couple of them as they're the most important. So the first one I want to talk about is the interrelationship of the plan both on and off the property. When you look at the location of the site, it's surrounded by single-family residential on all sides except for the south, where it is used as the ED2 substation. To the east, it's zoned urban ranch, but it's technically just agricultural land. The area where there's probably the most sensitivity is the property directly to the north, because there is a single-family home on the same side of the street there. And then, of course, you have the Mission Royale neighborhood on the west side of Hacienda. And so when looking at the proposal, we evaluated if this was compatible. On the preliminary conceptual plan provided by the applicant, they showed how some of those compatibility measures can be addressed. Firstly, they're not proposing a lot of fencing. Instead, they're using the buildings themselves to form the barrier of the site. And between the buildings and the property line will be a green belt, essentially. 15 feet on the north and south and east, and then 33 feet on the west. I also should point out that in addition to that 33-foot front landscaped setback area, there would be Hacienda Road, which would ultimately be greater than 110 feet wide. And then there's a landscape buffer adjacent to the backs of the homes in the Mission Royale neighborhood. There will be a little bit of fencing, but it's essentially to accommodate the to close in the gaps between the buildings, and likely that would be CMU block or wrought iron. When looking at the conformance with the general plan, this area is within the neighborhood's general plan designation. The idea behind the neighborhood's designation is it's to be composed of a variety of interconnected residential developments with thoughtfully placed non-residential uses that offer neighborhood-level amenities and services. So RV and self-storage is considered uses that can be of benefit to the adjacent growing neighborhood, accommodating storage needs for the residents. Self-storage use is allowed only in a limited number of zone districts, including B4 and I2. In the B4 and I2 zone districts, there's a number of pretty heavy commercial uses that could also be allowed in addition to self-storage. So B4 and I2 aren't appropriate zone districts within the neighborhood's land use category, and we wouldn't be in support of that type of zone district request. Accordingly, a PAD is the most appropriate because it can be tailored and specified just to allow this use of self-storage and RV storage and ancillary uses. One of the goals within the neighborhoods category is to minimize land use conflicts. And there's an action step pertaining to that, which is to require physical separation, such as fences, berms, and landscape areas between residential and non-residential developments. So I already had shown this slide before, but what the preliminary conceptual plan shows is that will be accommodated for by providing that green belt around the site. The other thing to point out is that the urban ranch zoning that exists to the north and south and east and the current zoning of this property is not a zone district that's supported by the current general plan, meaning that it can develop, the properties around there could develop as currently zoned, but someone couldn't request an urban ranch zone district there today. It's intended for greater and more intense uses to be benefited by Hacienda Road. And then also I wanted to point out the elevations proposed within public view of the Hacienda Road right-of-way. The buildings are comprised of a variety of building materials, and the longest building that has a very long plane provides staggered heights. The height of the building staggers in appropriate widths to provide some interest and to break up that long plane. But that building is standing at only 12 feet tall, so it essentially will look like a brick fence, essentially, but it's actually the back of the building. And then this is the elevation view of non-street side buildings, so to the south, north, and east. Another criteria that I wanted to talk about was the impact of the plan on anticipated traffic. So one of the largest concerns that we've heard is the fact that there's currently not a signal light at Hacienda and Florence. And ultimately, there will probably be a signal light there. It would need to meet warrants as development occurs and we continue to get traffic studies analyzing the level of service of the roadways that are contributing to businesses proposed along Hacienda. It'll be evaluated. And it's a potential with this project too. This is just the zoning right now. They have not submitted their major site plan. At the time of the major site plan, they'll provide a traffic study, and this will determine what improvements may need to be made. It could potentially include some improvements towards Hacienda and Florence intersection, but would also look at if other improvements need to be made more adjacent to their site. What's a given, though, is at the time of development, half-street improvements would be required along Hacienda abutting the site, which includes a dedication of 70 feet of right-of-way. And there would be curb, gutter, sidewalk, a turn lane into the site. There's 2 access points proposed. The primary one aligns with Hancock Trail, and then they have an emergency egress to the south. One of the recommended conditions is that right-of-way dedication would need to be made. Typically, that would be done at the time of the major site plan approval. However, what the condition goes on to state is that the city can require it earlier if requested by the city to do some sort of larger roadway project where that right-of-way might be needed. To give you an idea of what the ultimate street profile for Hacienda would look like, since it's designated as a principal arterial, you currently only see half of a street there because it was developed adjacent to Mission Royale, so its half-street section was put in. But ultimately, when the east side of Hacienda develops, there will be an addition of 2 lanes, and then there will also be a center striped median for turns, along with curb, gutter, and sidewalk. Regarding the notification process, it met that which is required by code. We had mailed notice out to properties within 300 feet and included the Mission Royale HOA. There was a newspaper publication, and there was a posted notice of the public hearings. There were a number of responses received from 4 nearby property owners. I indicated on the map where those locations were. The general summary of those comments, and they've been distributed to you this evening, is there was concern about fencing style, and I had mentioned that, there's not a lot of fencing proposed. They're using the backs of the buildings except for the areas between the buildings, but those will either be block or wrought iron. There was another concern about lights and glare from any signs or site illumination. And then also there was a concern, as I already covered, about traffic. Hacienda is considered already too busy. It's difficult to make turns in and out of Mission Royale, and also it's difficult to make turns onto Florence from Hacienda going left. Residents feel that a signal light's needed. There was a concern that traffic for the storage facility is going to just make it worse. And also, it might potentially avoid Hacienda by cutting through the Mission Royale neighborhood to make use of the signal light that's at Mission Parkway in Florence. There was concern about the building height. They had asked about if there was going to be limiting hours of operation, and concerns that the site will be misused, such as the storage spaces being used as residences. So I do want to point out that this is the first step in the development process. If the zone change gets approved, the major site plan would be coming back in front of Planning Commission as a public hearing, and we'll have more detailed reports at that time and more specifics on the plan to address matters such as lighting. It would have to meet our light ordinance for both signs and site lighting. And we would get a traffic study evaluating what types of improvements may be necessary. I will say that a storage facility is not known to be a high traffic generator. It's certainly less than if it were to have been developed as a 520 student school. But we will have an opportunity to evaluate those concerns at that time. And I did just, again, want to call attention to the mixture of elevations in that they are providing a variety of building materials. And the heights of the buildings are reasonable, considering that it's approximately the backs of those buildings are about 208 feet from the back wall of the Mission Royale neighborhood. The tallest building proposed on their preliminary conceptual plan is 22 feet. And then the other buildings along the Hacienda frontage are 12 feet tall. Freestanding signage would be limited to a monument style up to 10 feet in height to help reduce that impact of large signage. And also, we're recommending a technical modification for them to revise their PAD guide to provide more details on signage to just help promote the compatibility. And again, at the time of the major site plan, there'll be an opportunity to further review signage. And so staff does recommend that Planning Commission forward to City Council a recommendation to approve this zone change request, subject to the condition and technical modification that I covered. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for staff?
Chairman
Member
Miller.
Garza? Member Garza, go.
Thank you. Jim, I had just had a question about the setbacks, if you could go back to the slide. I thought you mentioned that the size of the building determines the setback width. So I'm looking at the side that's adjacent to the home. So I was just curious, how come that one is not 22 feet? They're supposed to be equal.
So what they're proposing is that any building less than 25 feet tall would have a 15-foot side and rear setback. It would be a 33-foot front setback no matter what. Any building that happened to be between 25 and 35 foot tall on the sides or rear would have to be the same setback as the height. So if they ultimately went with a 30-foot building there, then they'd have to be 30 feet from the sides and rear.
Okay.
Member Dugan?
Just for Dwayne, that intersection on Hacienda and Florence Boulevard, that is controlled by the state highway, and the city of Casa Grande can't do anything. I mean, they don't have any control over the intersection. It's strictly by the state of Arizona, is that correct?
So it is an ADOT intersection. However, we work closely with ADOT. In fact, about a month ago, I was out on site with a representative from ADOT looking at the intersection. It does not currently meet warrants for a traffic signal, but we were out there looking at whether there's anything else we could do to make it work better. So, yeah, it's mainly ADOT, but we are involved.
There's I live a mile just down the road, there's a lot of accidents on that corner, believe me, so. Hopefully the state and city look at it real soon, but anyway.
So, yeah, we're periodically looking at it, see if it meets signal warrants.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? I'm gonna circle back to Garza's question then, personally. So if I understand this right, they're requesting that it be different. I'm wrapping my head around that. So instead of having the larger setback, they're just requesting that it be less within their PAD?
So essentially what they're proposing is that any buildings less than 25 feet in height would have a 33-foot front yard setback, and then all of their setbacks would be 15 feet. Any buildings from 25 feet tall to 35-foot maximum would still have the same 33-foot front setback, but the sides and rear would have to have the same setback as that height, between 25 and 35 feet tall.
So outside of a PAD, if we just have a standard commercial property in the city of Casa Grande, what's the setback on a commercial property?
In a standard commercial zone, you typically have a rear of 15, and then one side could be as close as 0, and the other side would be 15.
So it doesn't vary based on the size of the building?
There's not a proportional relationship to height.
Okay. That's just so that way we have the comparison to a standard versus what they're requesting for a PAD.
Right.
PAD. Okay. Any other questions for staff? No? All right. Then at this time, I would invite the applicant and/or their representative. If they'd like to add anything to this, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Yes, hello, Chair Miller. My name is John Gillespie. I'm with the law firm of Pugh & Lake in Mesa, Arizona, 1744 South Val Vista. I represent American Development Company, the property owner here. I thought Jim did an awesome job with his presentation, provided us some good material to go off of and answered a lot of the questions. So I primarily want to just take any questions that you might have, and if any neighbors have comments that spur other questions, I'd appreciate being able to come back up. I will share, I also had the brain teaser of how does that setback work. Part of I think the intent there is with a 22-foot high building, it still is a one-story use, although there's storage facilities there, so you can fit your mattress in, and it can be a higher ceiling there. As soon as you hit to like a 25-foot building, that's where you're saying let's do a 2-story type building, and so let's move that building further off of the property line. So I think that's part of the architect's needs and intent there. In terms of the traffic questions, I think it's going to be this will be back before you for the major site plan, and we'll have completed some traffic warrants in that interim, and so we will actually be helping with that solution at the junction of Hacienda and Florence to make sure that when it's warranted, we contribute our portion to that light improvement, and it's good that we can do that study and contribute to that conversation early on. So let's see if I had another thought here. Also, I think it's just important to understand as well, we are the PAD is before you now. The site plan will come before you in the future, and in that interim, we really want to meet with neighbors. I've already met with a couple of our neighbors, our direct neighbors. I know Charles Rogers is here tonight. He's across Hacienda. The Villarreals to our north, talked to them on the phone. They liked the building configuration. They wanted to make sure that there was no retention basin actually on that north side because they were concerned about flooding issues. So we've opened up a good dialogue, and we'll continue that. And if we need to hold a neighborhood meeting and get more voices, we're happy to do that before we come before you again at the site plan. Yeah, and just reiterate that these elevations that are before you, I think they're really nice elevations, and we want to build to that, and that's a good standard to go to. We're not specifically approving that tonight, but it's certainly we've worked on it with staff, and we like the direction it's going with a mixture of materials, using materials that fit in the area, so the CMU block to kind of match what's across the street at the Mission Royale neighborhood. And I think this is a project that can be really good for the city of Florence. So with that, I'll answer any questions that the board might have for me.
Any questions for the applicant?
Nope.
No?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. At this time, then, I'll open it up to the public. Would anybody from the public like to speak to this agenda item? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Charles Russell. I live at 276 North Agua Fria. This unit would be directly behind me, and I'm a little concerned about the noise, and I'm concerned about the signage at night if it will glare into my back bedroom. And I'm also worried about property value. Is it going to decrease my property value with this facility behind me there? There are a lot of other places in Casa Grande that you could put RV storage. U-Haul is across the freeway over here, and it, is awful busy. They have rental trucks that are in and out all day. I'm not sure if this facility will be allowed to do like Ryder trucks or U-Haul because there's a lot of noise when they're cleaning the trucks, moving them around, in and out, starting them, stopping them all day long. The last concern I have is Hacienda is a raceway. By the time they get behind my house, they are doing 70, 80 miles an hour. I'm just worried about Hancock and Hacienda being a wreck, because of the speed that's associated with Hacienda Drive there. I know a lot of tickets have been given out, but it doesn't seem to slow the traffic down very much. And then, again, getting on to Florence from Hacienda is a nightmare, especially in the morning. Those are my main concerns, and I object to the whole idea. Is the rest of Hacienda going to be zoned later in the city plans for commercial use on the east side? Does anyone know, or is this the only thing that would be allowed along Hacienda there on the east side? The opposite side of the Mission Royale.
We'll address all the questions at the end of the public.
Okay.
Just so that way we don't have a debate at the podium.
Okay.
So, well, I got it noted here, so we'll have staff come back in case there's anybody else, so.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you. And then, is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak to this agenda item? Okay. I will close the public portion. Jim, general plan shows what in that expansion of our community? Want to address that issue first? The last question?
Find the best map here for you. So all of the properties on the east side of Hacienda Road are currently zoned urban ranch, which is a very low-density residential zoning. But based on the general plan category neighborhoods, urban ranch is actually not a zone district that that is considered by the general plan as technically appropriate. It can stay there. I mean, the property's not going to automatically be rezoned against the property owner's wishes. But what it means is that as properties develop, there's a number of other zone districts that are considered more appropriate than Urban Ranch. Due to the fact that the properties, by and large, at least on the north half of the east side of Hacienda, there isn't any certificate of assured water supply. So it's likely not going to be developed as a single-family residential neighborhood in that area. What you'll see potentially are rezones for other commercial and office uses. There would even be the eventual potential request for multifamily. But those would have to be subject to separate rezone requests brought forward by the property owner at the respective time, and it would be evaluated.
So currently, though, under neighborhoods, it's just earmarked for residential of some fashion at this point in time.
Right.
Future
Well,
development would need to, we don't have that as a business corridor or any type of,
so in the neighborhoods category, it does allow for commercial. It considers general business and appropriate use, multifamily,
right.
single family, but more of a greater density than the current urban ranch allows.
Okay.
Those are all appropriate zone districts, but anyone requesting those appropriate zone districts would have to come forward and request a zone change.
James, you might want to.
That's a good point. So commercial is also, single site is limited to 30 acres for commercial. So that would be a factor as well. So it would probably lend itself to other types of land use requests once that 30 acres, or, if someone was wanting to develop a site over 30 acres for commercial, they wouldn't be able to exercise that option.
And then, unfortunately, I'll say that we can't really, as far as home values, we don't have a way to speak to that or answer that specific question. Noise and lights and signage, I think, will be addressed as mentioned in regards to at the next phase. So after rezone, they'll have to bring forward a preliminary plat or a plat basically of the layout, where lighting will be, where signage will be. And so at that time, there would be additional conversation in regards to, because right now it's just in regards to the rezoning. So can't quite answer all those questions other than the preliminary layout that they have given us here today, but it's not official. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think
So
it's
to answer your question, we can't answer your questions, I guess, is the worst part, so I apologize.
I think it's a valid point because the backs of those homes will be looking at that signage,
Yeah.
especially if there's wall signage. I'm not as concerned about freestanding signage because usually that's perpendicular to the road.
Sure.
But a large wall sign could have an impact, and so that would be something looked at the major site plan stage to ensure that it's located and sized and
Okay.
illuminated in such a way that minimizes the relationship of that sign to the view of those homes.
All right. Commission have any other questions or comments? No?
Chairman Miller, I would recommend too to have the applicant speak to the question about the, whether there's an intent to do rental trucks and so forth out of that site.
Would you like to address that during the zoning portion? We can. If the applicant would like to maybe address some of the concerns of U-Haul partnership or trucking, or is it mainly indoor storage and RV parking, or?
Yeah, absolutely, Chair Miller. And so in talking to Charles, It sounds like he used that U-Haul for a fifth wheel parking, which we're hoping to give him an opportunity for something a little bit closer to his house to do that. But in going to the site, our site plan that gets approved, it's going to need to largely conform to what we've seen today. And today, we're not designed for a large-scale trucking rental type use. And so while it's not necessarily a prohibited use under the PAD, the intent for this is to have self-storage, about 50 spaces of RV or boat parking that could be covered or uncovered interior to the site. So a large-scale U-Haul rental is not envisioned for this site.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Might be difficult to compete with the one across I-10 that we approved. Okay, so at that time, Commission?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve favorable recommendations to the City Council for zone change DSA-21-00265 from Urban Ranch to Plein Area Development PAD. Just covered everything, I think, right? With recommendations from the staff.
With the technical modifications and conditions presented?
I'll second that motion.
Yes.
So I have a motion and a second to forward a recommendation of approval. Any discussion? Natalie, would you please call the roll?
Member Hubbard,
Yes.
Member Garza,
Aye.
Member Peters,
Aye.
Member Estrada,
Yes.
Member Dugan,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Benedict,
Yes.
Chairman Miller.
Yes. All right. So organized here. Next agenda item. Public hearing and consideration to forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for a request by Peter Holden, major amendment to the Spanish Trails Planned Area Development, DSA-22-00044. Mrs. Sarnowski, the floor is yours.
Right. Chairman Miller, members of the commission, next item on the agenda is DSA 22-00044, Spanish Trails Planned Area Development Major Amendment. Just going over a little overview and the request for this. Spanish Trails Planned Area Development and Major Site Plan was approved in 2019. The site is currently under final construction. However, the PAD guide specified the development as an active adult 55 and over community. This request is to update the PAD guide to remove the age restriction associated with the PAD. This request is going through the public hearing process because it was described as an active adult community in its initial zoning process, and this was indicated in the PAD guide, neighborhood meetings, and within minutes and testimony in both the Planning Commission and City Council. And so by removing the age restriction, this allows the applicant the flexibility to market the site to a wider range of potential residents. The staff report goes into additional detail on the PAD review criteria. However, I did want to note that since this was approved, the 2030 general plan changed the land use designation from neighborhoods to community corridor. So I just wanted to point that out, and that it is still in conformance with the general plan. So with that, planning, public hearing notifications met or exceeded the city code requirement. Since the staff report was published, I did receive one call and actually 2 emails. Another one came in later today. All were concerned with the removal of the age restriction, and you do have copies of the emails in front of you as well. So with that, staff recommends the Planning Commission forward a recommendation to City Council to approve the Spanish Trails Planned Area Development Amendment Request, DSA 22-00044. Happy to answer any questions the Commission may have.
All right, do we have any questions for staff?
I just have one. Are the lots in this development, are they for sale lots or they're not? How was that approved as a community does the owner hold the land use and rent the individual lots, or is there sales involved?
You own the trailer, you rent the lot.
Okay.
Single owner.
Yeah, it's one parcel, so they would not be individually owned. It's-
Okay.
Any other questions for staff?
Is the, so they want to open to all ages, which also means children, correct?
I will have the applicant address that, but it's just either to keep the options open, to either keep it all ages or 55 and over. It's just leaving that to the owner.
Okay. I drove through the facility, and the recreational facility, everything have pickleball courts in it. I don't think there's too many 8, 9, 10-year-olds like to play pickleball that much, would you think?
Might start a new trend.
Okay, I'll be asking that questions, okay.
Any questions for staff? We'll probably have a lot of questions for the applicant. Any questions for staff?
Isn't there an RV park right behind it? Is it 55 plus?
I believe so, but
Between Pinal and
There's one
this
right,
park, yeah.
right? Isn't there one right?
There is a facility there.
yeah, oh, yes, so,
Like right between that and the bowling alley, isn't there?
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's 55 plus? Okay.
We do. Oh, okay. You can confirm it is 55 plus? Okay.
Okay.
Somebody can, thank you. We're like, wait a minute. Okay.
All righty.
Any other questions for staff?
Chairman, I have a question.
Yeah.
So, Jacqueline, I was going to ask, under construction, how far into construction have they sold any of these lots to folks, or where is that at?
You would have to ask the applicant on that.
The applicant is, okay.
Well,
They are close.
we can give you some information. So the site improvements are just about done. They have to finish their landscaping, a little bit of rock in the retention basin, put up some additional street lights along the perimeter streets. The interior work for the interior roads, all the infrastructure's in. So the lots, the manufactured home spaces are developed.
Okay.
The utilities are in. And again, they're not going to sell those. They just lease those spaces. You buy a manufactured home, place it on the space, and lease the space from the owner.
Got it. Is it a private and gated community?
It is a private gated manufactured home park.
Got it. Thank you.
So you're not leasing I apologize, so you're not leasing the homes, they're all rented? I mean, they're all owned?
So normally, and the applicant can address this too, normally you would purchase a home and lease the space.
Mm-hmm.
But I suspect if I bought as an investor, I could probably buy a home and rent
then
it
lease
out.
Okay.
But we'll let the applicant address that as
Okay.
well.
I have one more question. If this is going to be for younger people also, doesn't the city require so much of it being a park and putting playground equipment in and so forth, which does not show on this plan?
So as a PAD, we require 20% open space, I believe. Is it 15 or 20 on this one? It's either 15 or 20%, but the open space does not change whether or not it's an active adult or a family community. The open space requirements are exactly the same. Now, the open space that they developed, as you note, might include recreational facilities that are targeted for a specific age and not necessarily for a younger age. But the open space requirements will be met no matter what demographic they lease to.
Member Bennett.
Okay, so to be clear, there's, my recollection, there's wall all the way around this red line, dotted red lines. And there's 2 entrances, or, anyway, there's restricted entrance.
Yes, there's an entrance on O'Neill and Cascade Avenue.
Okay. And the yellow around it is all single-family home on this map, except for this little piece down below. Do we have any idea what's going in there? I can't read the thing.
South of O'Neill, or south of O'Neill?
That's the park, right?
No. The green is the park.
Not the green. Yeah, this
South-
yellow over here.
The yellow
I
is-
believe that was rezoned to multifamily.
It was, that came in front of us. It was proposed for multifamily.
Proposal for multifamily at that site that hasn't advanced any further in the zoning stage.
Okay, that's what my weak memory was thinking, that something that, okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? No? All right. Just as clarification, I think their report showed that they did 15% open space in their report. Yeah. So that way we got the 20 to 15 sorted. So this time then I'll invite the applicant and or their representative like to come forward. Please state your name and address for the record.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, my name is Dennis Fitzgibbons. I represent the owner, Peter Holden, who's here tonight. I'm at 1115 East Cottonwood Lane, Suite 150 in Casa Grande. I really would like to reserve time. It looks like there's a lot of people here that want to speak. I will address quickly a couple of your questions, though. One is that people can't sublease these houses. The houses are purchased and then the land is leased to the owner. The owners have rules and regulations. Everybody who comes in and purchases or leases land has to go through a criminal background check. We have managers on site all the time. We have rules and regulations that control the park. So it's a very safe park, very safe environment. All we're trying to do through this process is, as you guys know, is that the city can't put age restrictions on property. And this owner came in, did do that. And now, as our community is changing, he wants to be as flexible as possible and figure out the best thing he can do for our community, whether it be housing for young people or go back to 55. As you see, it's an or what he has. But we appreciate staff's help. We appreciate our staff's recommendation. We support the recommendation. And if I could, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to reserve time till more people speak.
To address any questions, or the commission prefer to have public come forward first?
I forgot what my question was.
I didn't want to be limited to 3 minutes. If you're gonna give me-
No, you're good. You get more than 3. You get more than 3 minutes as the applicant.
Okay,
But
good. All right.
You know, I got a question.
yeah,
Will there be a manager living on site?
Commissioner Estrada, that's an excellent question. I appreciate you asking it. Yes, there will be.
Okay.
And the manager will be on site. I'm not sure if he lives there, but he will be on site throughout the day and evening.
Okay, thank you.
go ahead, Member Dugan.
Yeah, there are CC&Rs too. They have to keep their place up and so forth. There's a regular CCR for the people that are renting these, so.
Chairman Miller, Commissioner Dugan, I wouldn't call them technically CC&Rs. There's going to be rules and regulations because we own the property. So those rules and regulations are what you will agree to if you lease our property and buy a house. So they'll have to follow those rules and regulations, and if they don't, they can be removed from the property.
And the second question is, can the people that buy the manufactured homes, can they rent them out?
That's an excellent question. I appreciate that. No, they cannot. They cannot sublease their homes.
Okay.
Chairman Miller?
Member Peters.
I have one question. I noticed that there are units within that property right now. Were those units purchased by people with the understanding that it was going to be an adult community?
Commissioner Peters, we appreciate that question. No, we do not have any contracts. We have contracts that anybody can get out of because we're not finished building it. But nobody who potentially is looking at living there is forced to stay there, even if we remove even if you give us the authority to remove the 55 and older. I think there's only, if I remember right, I think there's only 4 contracts, but everybody can get out of those contracts until the property is completed.
Thank you.
Any other question? Question that you may or may not know. HUD housing, most 55 plus communities require or allow for sub 55-year-olds. Like usually it's around 20%, I think, up to 45-year-olds. Is that, I guess what I'm trying to wrap my head around, if we approved it originally that then was more restrictive than a federal guideline through HUD. Does that make sense?
Chairman Miller, it does make sense, and that's exactly, you're exactly correct. It is more restrictive in the way, because it got approved through a zoning provision, and so we would perceive it to be more restrictive than HUD. But really, we want maximum flexibility, so we'd like just to remove all the age restriction, and that's the way the PAD was presented. Either or is how we'd like to do it.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you. We may have you come back up, but at this point in time, we'll.
No, I'd be happy to come
we'll
back up.
open
I
it
wanted
up.
to make sure we reserve time to address all those issues. Thanks.
Appreciate it. So at this time, then, I will open it up to the public. Would anybody from the public like to speak to this agenda item? Please feel free to come forward. State your name and address for the record.
Terrell Akins, 120 West O'Neill, number 40. I'm in that area that is almost completely surrounded by this this new park. Start out with just thanking the members of the commission and staff. I appreciate your time. I spent over 10 years on the Jackson County, Missouri Planning Commission, and so I spent my own time doing what you are doing right now, and I really do appreciate you. This, to me, as a planning member, a former planning member, looks like a typical bait and switch. That's what it appears to be. Maybe it's not. Maybe there was a change of heart, a genuine change of heart after this was already started. But I've seen it before. I have concerns about it. I've lived here in Casa Grande for about 3.5 years, originally from Kansas City, Missouri, and I have been staying in the Casa Grande RV Resort on Rodeo until November, and I purchased a home in the adjacent safari park, the one that's 3/4 surrounding this, or surrounded by this, with the understanding that that was going to be a 55-plus community. The park that I was in, very nice park, don't get me wrong. I liked it there, it's a very nice park. However, it was an all-age park. I'm 3 weeks from retiring, and I get up at 3:05 a.m. And a family environment tends to be later, noisier, busier than a 55-plus environment. So now I've purchased a home to retire in, and the game's changing. I have some concerns also about the amount of traffic. I did not hear how many homes were going to be on this, but it was 40-plus acres, correct? That's close to 2 million square feet. That's a lot of lots. That's a lot of homes. Potentially up to, 400 homes maybe? I don't know that they're planning that many. But that's a car for mom, a car for dad, and a car for at least one teenager, maybe more. Pulling out onto Pinal Ave off of O'Neill Drive, which is an uncontrolled intersection. Pinal Ave is State Highway 387, so you guys don't have, my understanding is the city of Casa Grande doesn't have direct control over that. So those are just some of my concerns. I'm about out of time, but I would note that the owner's rep is from here, but the owner, I believe, is from Dallas. Am I correct about that? So the owner is not invested in the community the way we are. They're invested in that 43 acres, but not necessarily in the community as such. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else? Please come forward. Name and address for the record.
Thank you. My name is Nancy Wood, and I'm at 513 East Beckel Road, Casa Grande, Arizona. And I wanted to object to the age change from the retirement of 55 that they originally proposed, because they were wanting to go from single-family homes, and there would be increased density. People had concerns over the number of people in close to this other single-family homes, and I feel like this is a kind of bait and switch. that they came in, proposed this 55 and older community, that it would be quiet, that it would be fitting in with the single-family homes that were close to us. And I feel that changing it to all ages is going to increase the population quite a bit, and the noise and the activity that goes on in that. And it's not originally what was proposed. And I have concerns because there is a second property that they plan, and this was the same kind of thing that's going to be on the other side of College Park, that's supposed to be a 55 and older community. Are they going to do the same thing? I just see this as a slippery slope and do not approve of their change. So I would request that the planning and zoning not approve this change from the 55 to open it up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Brian Pratt at 416 East Providence Drive. I live just to the north of the development. And I went out, talked to a few of my neighbors the last few days. I got 4 pages of signatures of people who object to this development just because of the previous reasons that we've heard: traffic, potential for crime. I just had it brought up to me that it could possibly, I mean, they have a gated community, yes, but are the gates closed? Or is there a key code to get them open? Is it going to be just wide open like that? Earlier today, I talked to a former member of the zoning commission, and he told me that one of the conditions that they used to, when they initially approved this area, was that it was 50 plus 55 or 55 plus, because he said that the traffic studies showed that it would not handle the amount of traffic, increased traffic that would be occurring due to, you know, like they said, 2 to 3 vehicles per house as opposed to 1 vehicle per residence. Yeah, just everybody in the neighborhood that I talked to is very much against it. A lot of people I couldn't talk to, they all thought I was a salesman for solar or something like that, but you know, it's, you know, when we were initially told about the idea, I was against it when they first put in the park, or were talking about putting in the park. But they assured me and promised me that, oh, it's going to look just like the one up on North Treckle. All you're going to see is some nice roofs, some landscaping and everything else. And well, they haven't come through the landscaping yet, but now there's a lot of RVs parked in there. And it just seems like if you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. They're going to keep trying to change stuff and rotating it. And just, we have to put our foot down at some point. And that's the way that I feel. And like I said, quite a few of my neighbors feel the same way. But thank you all.
Chairman Miller, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, city staff, neighbors, and guests. My name is Janice Pratt. I live at 425 East Providence Drive for 32 years, and I've lived in Casa Grande for 35 years. The Pratts are native born. I was born in Bethesda as a Navy junior, and I moved 9 times before college and lived in 4 more states after I was with my hotel career. Thus, I consider myself an expert in moving and renting places to live. My most critical issue is safety. I know we will all agree that good teams can solve complex problems. Tonight, the commission needs to solve a complex problem that affects me, my family, and neighbors. This complex problem must take everyone into consideration, including the people already living here. Ask yourself, why would a developer who is known to be expert in 55-plus communities request a change? You have a written agreement. Why break that? They have a 20% residency leeway from the quote-unquote Sun City ruling of 1968, and with that flexibility, why would they need more change? And as for Sun City and Sun City West, my grandparents and parents lived there, and I know firsthand that those wanting to be in that community had to wait to be 55. That's what it means to be a 55-plus community. The developer has successfully managed 55-plus communities before, and they have expert experience to work this through. I do not accept their justification. Everyone is challenged by this housing market. Next year, it'll be something else. With a change from 55-plus community college, College Park folks will have lower home valuation. Initially, a single-family residential area was planned with a chance, and when it was changed to higher density, the best circumstance was 55 and over. We were promised 55 and over, and any change to that is not favorable. Please, do not shift the developer's perceived problems to real problems for Casa Grande current residents. Please do not modify this agreement. The over 55 housing was the agreement. Keep your promise. Vote no on changes to the 55 and over plan. Thank you.
Members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, thank you for your time. My name is John McWhirter. I live at 480 East Duke Drive. I've lived there since '93 when I moved into this community. It's always been a nice neighborhood. As stated previously, I don't like the idea that we're trying to change the rules in the middle of the game. It was approved at 55 plus, and now they want something different. I cannot give you definites. I hear the things talking around town that other parks are having trouble because people are trying to move in there on a temporary basis because of the housing market right now and the abundance of a lot of jobs. They just can't find some place to live. I think we have 3 projects in the process to take up a lot of that slack. Across the street from Safeway, the corner of Cottonwood and Pert, and what I understand is going to be on the corner of Treckle and Courtson. 3 facilities that will take up the room for what is wanting to be done here. So again, my statement is, yeah, we're changing the rules in the middle of the game. And yes, the ownership is hearing, oh, I'd like to move in there until my house gets built. But once you take off that limit of 55 plus, basically it becomes another neighborhood, but it will tend to be a neighborhood that, as stated previously, I think it will affect the property values in College Park. They asked for 55 plus, they were granted that permission, and now they want to change the rules. And what game do you play that the rules are changed in the middle of the game? Thank you for your time.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the Zoning Commission, and thank you for this time. My name is Dan Mentor. I live at 120 West O'Neill Drive, lot number 58B, which is immediately adjacent to this project that's going on. I've been taking a keen interest in this project since the very beginning, reading what's been coming out in the papers, so on and so forth. This project has already been granted numerous variances. One was the number of model homes that they had to offer. They allowed them to offer less model homes. They've also allowed them to put more homes per acre on these lots. That was another variance that was granted, all because I assume it's 55 plus. In 55-plus parks, you're going to see mostly 2 people in that home. In a park with no age restriction, you're going to see 2, 3, 4 or more people in this home. When this project was designed, I'm sure they had to give a sewer projection for sewer output. They had to have a water usage projection. Those are all based on 2 people per home, or 1 or 2 lavatories in the house. 55 and over keeps the number of the people down in those trailers. Remove the age restrictions, you're going to see more crowded units. Because the facilities have mostly been completed, the parking pads have already been done. Once again, if you've ever been through a 55-plus park, there's not a lot of room for parking extra automobiles. The facilities are going to be overloaded. Your pool and clubhouse, they were designed for 55-plus people, for that number of people. You're going to have more kids in the pools, I would assume, because the kids don't play pickleball, plain and simple. You're going to add traffic year-round, where at one time, a 55-plus park, snowbirds, hopefully they go home, once the snow melts away, but back home, it leaves our traffic load anyhow. And if it's not, we're going to have constant traffic on that street with an additional set of apartments across the street that's going to be dumping additional traffic. They had considerable construction delays with this. I understand the owner is trying to cash out. Sympathetic to his, to everybody's lack of properly priced homes, reasonably priced homes, so on and so forth. However, I don't think raising this releasing this age restriction is going to accomplish what everybody is hoping to accomplish. I think it's going to do more harm than good. I'd like to thank you for your time, your concern, and personal commitment in helping to ensure we build and shape Casa Grande into a city designed for the people, not large money influence. Thank you very much for your time.
Hey, members of the council. I just want to say, my name's Shane Aberson, 1805 North Princeton. I think it's pretty obvious that would anybody want this in their neighborhood, or the applicants, would they want it in their neighborhood? That's my only question.
My name is Lori Mentor. I live at 120 West O'Neill 58B. If you look at the picture of our RV park, we are dead center in the middle of your corridor. We are going to be on 3 sides of them. The place hasn't even opened yet, and we're already dealing with fifth wheels, with people and multiple animals. So I can only imagine what it's going to be like if you lower the limit and we have kids running around. I am just at 60 years old. I'm not that close to retirement, but I sure love living there. I've lived there since I was 47. And one of the things I enjoyed is the kids come in to see their grandparents and they leave, including my own. But I want to reference when the first gentleman was up here, he said that he sent letters to people that live within 300 feet. I live within probably 15 feet. I didn't get a letter. Never seen a letter. Never had anybody come and ask us if what we thought about changing the limit to 35. We don't allow it in our place because they're retired people, and yes, we do have snowbirds. But I would really like the fact that you guys keep it at the 55 limit, and if the builder would like to make one younger, then come back with another piece of property and put that in front of you guys. So thank you very much for your time.
My name is Kirk McCardle. I reside at 9405 North Paseo, Palo Verde. I also am a longtime resident of this community, born and raised here. Been in the real estate business here for 42 years. I know of no correlation between single family or winter visitor subdivisions having any negative impact on neighboring property values. I've not seen that. Of course, it can happen in either case, depending on the management or the amenities. This is a highly amenitized facility, whether it's retiree or family. It's the original owner, the original developer is a client of mine. I've sold him the land. The Holden family, Peter Holden, by the way, lives in Chandler. They are well known for building 55 and over retirement communities. The buyer also is well known for that. In fact, Sun Communities owns Palm Creek, and you can take a look at that development and look at how clean and well managed and nice that is. They also are reacting to the housing market. There is a housing crisis in this town, in this country, in this state right now. There is no shortage of 55 and over housing in our community. In fact, for 6 months out of the year, they're vacant. The housing crisis, the median price in Casa Grande for houses, and Chris knows this, is about $350,000 right now. There's not a starting employee at Lucid Motors that can afford that mortgage. There's nobody at Tractor Supply or nobody at Walmart that can afford that. And we're building to unmet demand. We have a moratorium on single-family subdivisions, which wouldn't matter because they'd still be starting at $350,000. But all of this rental product you see that's coming on, there's more demand than that. And we've been lucky to land 8 manufacturing businesses, new businesses here in town within the last 12 to 18 months. All of those workers need a place to live. Most of them can't afford to buy the houses. The city's firemen, the city's policemen, most of the city's employees can't afford this median price house. The proposition for a family community there is better for the city for a number of reasons. I believe the council originally wanted it to see it be a family community. That's just not what Peter specializes in. Sun Communities does both, and they do it very, very well. They have a great reputation for community management. They're going to buy it, they're going to own it long-term, they're going to develop it. If there's a criminal in there, they're going to go to jail. If they're going to get evicted. If they're loud, if they're noisy, they're not following the park rules, they're going to be asked to leave. The idea that because lower income people have less income are criminals is not factual and kind of offensive actually to most people in that income category. The city's income, the city's budget is based 60% on sales tax income. That doesn't happen for 6 months out of the year in retirement communities. If we have families in there that live here, work here, shop here, and play here 12 months out of the year, it's a tremendously better business proposition for the city. I believe this development is better for the community, better for the neighbors, and better for the city.
Yeah. Yeah, by all means. Please state your name and address for the record.
I have 3 minutes, right?
Yep.
Okay, I've never spoken before a city council before. I'm a little bit nervous.
Well, we're just the Planning and Zoning Commission, so don't worry.
We're not.
City council's higher than us, so you're okay. We're right in here with you.
I don't fully understand the difference, but my first name is James, and I would like to keep my last name and address private, just out of respect for my privacy, and just in case some people disagree with what I have to say. But the speaker before me, they addressed a few issues. They were stating that it's more difficult for people to get housing, and there were a lot of older folks close to retirement, whatnot, speaking about this. And I want to say, I am somebody who recently moved here from Alabama, and the housing market is high, and I live in an apartment. But I don't think that justification warrants these people changing their word. I think that they're trying to portray this as an altruistic motive, and it's really for the sake of profit. And if, let's say somebody purchases property and they had the humility to come in and say, honestly, look, we're not going to be able to fill all of these lots with 55 plus people. Would you guys please maybe be willing to accept a compromise and let us go 35% out of it or whatnot, right? Negotiate that way. But instead, it seems like a pretext when they talk about how they're trying to help basically young professionals like me. I don't work at Lucid Motors, I work at Nikola Motor, I'll say that. And we're building, or have built, a factory actually on the border of Coolidge and Eloy. And so a big reason why I live in Casa Grande is because of that factory. And so I'm currently leasing an apartment, But I also want to point out too, they said that you really wouldn't own the land, right? This is something that people would rent the property and live in an RV. So it isn't really exactly something that you would call a starter home. I mean, people who usually do that are 55 plus communities anyway. Like for example, in Mesa, right? Like I was considering buying a trailer in this area, and I decided to hold off because they're overpriced. But if I were to buy one, I would want to own the property on it. Out in like Apache Junction and Mesa and all these places, you see pretty much every time it's structured that way that it's a 55 plus community anyway. So it's hard to say exactly sometimes what developers are planning. You know, I worked at a natural gas company back in Alabama. That's where I moved from, and I moved over here in June. And I saw there a lot of things happened. For example, these site plans that you guys review. So I went out and inspected gas main, and I saw where slabs were actually poured and looked at site plans. I've taken measurements right off the edge of pavement, and we've had to move gas mains for developers because they weren't putting in concrete pads where site plans said they would. And I even asked a project manager one time, and I said, you know, you're asking us to move our gas main, but these concrete slabs aren't coming in where the site plan goes. And he said, oh, that's just a recommendation. That's just a general outline. And so I don't know if this developer goes by that exactly or not, but what I'm telling you guys is don't think that the site plan is going to represent to a T what is happening. And it looks like if terms of the deal are already being changed and renegotiated this early, then that site plan could still change again later on. It looks like my time is up.
Thank you. Did an excellent job for your first time. Appreciate it. Anybody else from the public first? Dennis, is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak? Okay. Then at this time, I will close the public portion.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just to address a few issues that were raised. One is somebody said something like 400 homes. We wish we had 400 homes. There's only 195 homes. Second will be the manager will live in the community. That was a question I got before. So the manager will live there. While I truly appreciate the public coming out and talking, I mean, this is what a community is all about, is to come to these meetings and talk and voice your opinions, and we appreciate that. One thing I think is an unfair characterization would be that this was somehow some bait and switch. I think go back and look at the record. This was rezoned in July, I think, of 2019. I don't think Lucid was coming vertical at that time. I don't think Kohler was even thought about at that time. I don't think two of the Taiwanese companies that have now purchased ground in this town was even thought about. And I think things have changed very greatly. And I know you guys are on the Planning and Zoning Committee, so you've probably seen Elliott Pollock's recent study talking about what the price of houses are and what it does to our communities. And our communities need police, fire, teachers, and they can't afford $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 houses. These houses will be less than $200,000, but it will allow a young family to buy a manufactured home and allow that home to appreciate in value while they live there. And I think it's clear from what's been talked about is, and I appreciate Brian's petition, but we all know that he didn't have the opportunity to talk about there'd be a manager living on site, that everybody would have a criminal background, that there'd be rules and regulations that people would have to follow. I mean, think about it. The person who lives next to you that buys a house, Commissioner Hubbard's not doing a criminal background check on him if she sells him a mortgage. Those criminal background checks aren't done. This place is a much safer community, and it's a gated community. And sure, people have said Peter Holden does a really good job, but who he's selling to also does an excellent job. There was mention of the traffic study, and somehow this might increase the traffic, but I think staff will tell you that the traffic study assumed full traffic. The traffic study was not different because of 55 and older community, active community. The traffic study is the traffic study. So there's not going to be increased traffic. I know Commissioner Dugan's worried about kids learning how to play pickleball. I will tell you I've actually played pickleball, and I wish I would have learned that at an earlier age. But I think what you're finding is kids do enjoy pickleball. And I think There was a question about parking, and each home can accommodate 4 cars. No parking on the streets are not allowed in the community, so that won't be a problem. I know there were some concerns about the RVs, and we appreciate you bringing that up, but those are just temporary. We have approval in our PAD to allow RVs until we sell out all the homes. So the RVs will not be there once we sell out this project. And I think the times have changed dramatically since this project was approved. I think we want a community where our teachers, police, and fire can live. And I think this project, if you remove the 55 and older restriction, would allow them to live in a community like this, which is safe, gated, and has rules and regulations that everybody must follow. And if the commission has any other questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Do we have any questions for the applicant?
I have one question.
Member
So
Dugan.
basically, if the people that move in there don't abide by the rules and regulations, you can actually, because they got a contract to rent that land, so you can actually void that contract and
We can
have
void the
them
contract
they'll
and
have to
sell-
mandatorily move out.
They'll have to sell their property, yep. And then if someone sells their property, they have to bring the buyer to our manager so we can do a criminal background check and approve the buyer before that transaction ever goes forward.
Okay.
And if it stays at the 55 plus right now, can people under 55 live there, like kids? Or
I
like-
think there's a question, and I understand what Ms. Platt was talking about, that case, but I think if we would have potentially had, HUD 55, we didn't have any of that in our PAD. We just had 55 and over. So I think that's debated, whether or not the 20% could come in, but
No, I
that's
mean-
not where.
Can you have kids live there for a certain amount of time? Like in some of the 55 communities, you can have someone 18 or live there for like 2 months, 1 month. Is there that in the regulations?
I'm not completely familiar with all the 55 old community. I assume a lot of it gets defined in our rules and regulations, but I think it'd be problematic because I think then you have people, and this commission some of you guys might have approved this in the beginning, and I think Kirk McCarver was correct. We did have certain people on council questioning, why is this going to be limited to 55? We need a place for families. And so we got pushback in the beginning, and now we're getting pushback trying to get back. And I understand that. People want to ask questions and get their information, and that's what this meeting's for. But I think at this point, we want to remove the restrictions so that we can have either or and let us decide what's best.
Can I ask one more question?
Mm-hmm.
On the rent, because you're gonna be leasing the lots, what is approximately the lease for the
How much?
$450?
$450 a month.
And then, are you buying all the homes right now, or are you putting in the homes? Because they look like they're modular homes
I think
to me.
they'd be put in once they're purchased.
And what are the price range?
It's going to be less than 200,000.
That's starting at 200,000, you go above 300,000, is that correct?
No, it could be less than 200,000. I think the
Okay.
price point's probably around 200 if we could. Which I think in some ways keeps the value of the neighborhood.
140 to 240?
What's the size of the units, roughly? Like, so somebody had referenced Palm Creek, those are park models, but then they added some specialty areas with double wides. I think I remember approving that through planning and zoning. And I know we approved the 195 units, which, by the way, was actually reduced because they requested more, and we did not allow that variant. They originally wanted, I think, 208 units. Do we know what size those units are, roughly?
Each unit is 12 to 1,800 feet.
12 to 1,800 square feet, okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, yeah. What? Go ahead.
No, I was
Back
just
me.
thinking, just because I do mortgages, this is not like original mortgage.
Yeah.
So you would have to, they're a little bit different to get financing for. And a lot of times, younger people may not be able to do this type of financing, so it's really not,
It's hard to do anyways.
it's hard to do, but it's not, it's because you don't own the land, and it's just a different type of financing. It's kind of like an RV financing.
Right.
So you're talking about, yeah, are you financing? No, I'm just asking.
No. Yeah.
No, I meant.
The owners are in the very back.
They're in the back, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Okay.
I think I saw no was the answer.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's all, I was just wondering, okay. Because it just takes a certain lender that will do it, and, okay.
Credit score's got to be pretty decent too. So
Pardon me?
the credit score on
It's,
Has to be high.
it's going to
yeah.
be tough.
You have to have like 740
Well, thank you.
plus.
Yeah.
At this
I
side.
got one more question.
Member Dugan.
If you want to do a compromise, would you compromise to people from 45 and above?
Yeah.
I think that just complicates everything. I mean, I appreciate the offer, and I appreciate you making that, but I think that, I'm not sure we have one. And do we have a 45 and above in the community? And then what are we going to say next, 30? Or are we going to say 28? I was probably my best at 35, so maybe we should go to 35. But I think it's all difficult once you start throwing those numbers out. And I appreciate the idea that we want to solve an issue, and I appreciate that. But I think at the same time, I think it'd be better just to remove it so that we can figure out the right people that can afford it.
But if we approve this the way you want to approve it, it's going to set a precedent too. That everyone wants to put mobile home parks in, and no age limit.
Well, it's a manufactured home park, and I think
manufactured
it's
home.
gated, and I think I think there's a lot of unique amenities in this park that make this a very secure and safe park.
And I think that I can appreciate the trying to reach a compromise, but then we run ourselves into other typical.
That's a different precedent.
Other legal issues that we may run into because of, I don't know that we can say you have to be this age or this age. We could say you can't be older than 45. Now, all of a sudden, we start redlining and creating other housing issues that we are not legally allowed to do. So I would refrain from that. The other side of it, too, as well, that I think I struggle with is landowner rights. I mean, ultimately, this person owns this property and has put a ton of money into it to help develop our community, and I think it's difficult for us to tell them what they can and can't do in regards to, I didn't buy it, I didn't put up all the money, I didn't take the financing and the risk to develop a property that I could lose who knows how much money they've gotten into it, and so that's a difficult situation as well.
Chairman, I'm kind of on the other side. I am a firm believer, and we made a commitment back in 2019 to the property owners surrounding. I didn't sit on the commission, but, government really needs to follow through sometimes when they've made a decision and they're mid-construction with the project, Had they brought this to us before they started any of the work out there so that we could talk about it again, I feel like it's already more than done. So.
I'm in agreement.
You have a question for staff, I believe? Thank you, Dan. At
Okay.
this point in time, if we
The
need
only thing
anything else.
The only thing I would respond is, I think projects are kind of living, breathing projects. I mean, you have amendments all the time. You have amendments to zoning, you have amendments to PADs, you have amendments. I mean, that's part of the process. And I think, I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate that, but I think we also have to deal with the realities of the community we live in right now and how it's changing this quickly. I never thought a house in my neighborhood would sell for $500,000 ever in my lifetime in this community.
Yeah.
But that's the world we live in, and I think that's why the
understand,
process allows us to do amendments.
Yeah.
Because nothing's ever perfect and nothing's ever set in stone. So thank you very much for your time.
You got it.
Member Benedict, you have a question for staff?
So, well, actually, question
Member Hubbard?
Mr.
yeah.
Hubbard? Sure.
Miss
Oh.
Hubbard.
Commissioner Hubbard.
Yeah.
So, when I start thinking about these numbers, this really doesn't solve the affordable housing issue. You've got the
No.
$450 land lease, and then a $200,000. I can't run those numbers quickly in my
It's
head. You
about-
do that all day long.
Plus utility, yeah, you're looking,
Well,
I mean, you're
everybody
looking
has utilities, so that's.
about
But for
$1,100
mortgage,
utility,
mortgage.
just-
You're looking about
Yeah.
almost $1,100 mortgage, I was just figuring it up, and then 400, so it's about $1,500. But the issue is, to me, the issue is, it's not like just buying a home with land on it. You have, this type of home is not the same type of financing that we'd normally get. It's normally somebody with a 740 credit score or higher. Not everybody for affordable housing has that credit score. You're looking at 600 to maybe 680 right in there, and they wouldn't be approved.
So doesn't that reiterate, though, isn't that needing a higher credit score, it being more expensive, wouldn't that lean to being a positive? I'm getting no's shaking their heads, but ultimately, I think that your guys, it seems like what was expressed from the public was
So
that we
certain-
don't want
A person 55 or older,
low-income housing.
You wouldn't get it. You would be,
Right.
55 plus would have that.
No,
So
but I'm
you
saying,
would
but they
gear
don't want
towards-
low-income housing any age. And what you guys are having a conversation about makes it seem like that it will not be, you can't be low-income because you have to make.
Right, but that's.
A
there's-
certain threshold, yeah.
Yeah, like it just seems like
Right.
it's counterintuitive to what everybody's.
But Chris, what you're saying is they would qualify on a fixed income at over 55. There's different qualifications if there's an
Well,
active adult
normally
community?
older people have a little bit better credit score, so they would,
They may have a larger down payment.
A larger down payment.
They
would
just have a
usually it.
longer credit history.
Sure.
So my question for staff is, Dwayne, so help educate me, would a traffic impact study be any different if the community was 55 plus or if it was not? How would that impact those numbers or not?
Let me go back a little bit and talk about what we're looking for in a traffic study. We require a traffic impact analysis if the peak hour trips are over 100 trips in the AM peak hour or the PM peak hour. So this one, yes, there is more traffic if it's not a over 55 community. The difference is, in the AM peak would be about 80 vehicles with not over 55, and the over 55 would be about 40 vehicles in the peak hour. Neither one of those are huge numbers,
Gotcha.
but there is a difference.
Thank you.
And then the other side of it, Gert, I guess, since we have some fun discussion here.
and we do have.
I think so.
We do have a development right behind, that is 55 plus, so, I mean. that's
Yeah, but I
gonna
think
affect them
ultimately,
too.
like when we look at it, we change things constantly.
I understand that. I just feel like it is too late in the game to be changing
Is
what
it-
the process
is
was
it too late in the
planned
game
for.
to do a conditional use permit on, what did we do, in a subdivision for housing, for a home, right? Home for kids or whatever I can't remember what they call them, but we change things constantly.
For the
tweak
care
it.
facility.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Right, so we had it for,
But we didn't have a group of citizens here.
we did.
We actually
We did have a group of
We-
citizens
yeah,
here.
believe
And so
we
like,
did.
it's a difficult thing, right? And I get it.
Yeah,
The hard part is always, it's not in my backyard, right?
Right.
We all want a project, but you don't want it in your own backyard. I don't live very far from here, so, I mean, I don't live as close as you do, but, and so that gets difficult, you know? I mean, it gets to be,
Yeah, I understand.
we're just here to say, does it fit the zoning? Does it fit the rules? Does the landowner have the right with their PAD to make an adjustment? If you owned the land and you wanted to make a change and the government told you no, but it was still fit community corridor, still fit neighborhoods, still fit all these, checked all these boxes, is that fair?
But we represent the public, you know?
We do,
We are
but
their voice.
the needs have changed in the housing market. I mean, everybody's seen it. It's no secret. I think it benefits the public as a whole. I don't want to minimize it, but, you know,
But I'm
versus,
not seeing the benefit
I'm
with
not
the
seeing the
with
benefit
the cost
either.
of
You're
the
not
home, you know what I
leasing,
mean?
you're not leasing, you have to buy this house.
right.
Yeah.
But I think the other issue is, which I think that the applicant made the point of, which they're asking for this change, but we don't know what they're gonna do either. Like, they're in, does that make sense? Like, so the
But
concept
you
is.
never want to, write them a blank check to do whatever they want to do with it.
Well, but we just changed the zoning for the property across from,
Yeah, but that's at the beginning, we haven't heard the whole thing on that either.
It'll come back for.
It'll come back.
nothing could happen there, and then we could get an entirely different project to show up. Now that fits that same zoning, right? So we do this constantly.
Yeah.
In regards to zone changes, where we change the zoning that we think is an appropriate use, and now we gotta deal with what the end user's gonna end up being,
I
which
get
makes
it.
it difficult. And so,
That's why there's this panel of
that's right,
seven of
that's why we,
us.
that's why we get to have this great conversation, right? Which I get, I'm not trying to, I'm just looking at it from all angles, I guess, is where I'm trying to be.
But they're already building. It's like, they've already set it all up, correct?
Yeah, the infrastructure's in.
They have 4 or 5 homes up there already.
Yeah. How about what is it, the facility over off of, where is it? Right behind Lowe's. We think about the original project was set up to be townhomes,
Acacia Lofts.
gated townhomes, and then it turned into independently owned, and then somebody tried to buy them all up and turn it into an apartment complex, and then somebody tried to, right, like,
Yes, it was approved as condominiums. It got a
They ended
zoning
up-
to allow apartments. That's true.
Yeah, they ended up having both.
yeah. Like, it's like,
Great.
But that's after it was built.
no, it's only partially built. There's a bunch of
Right.
dirt lots in there still.
Oh, that's true.
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion, and we gotta say yes or no, so I'm not, no, quite yet how to vote on, but I'm gonna make a motion to we make a favorable recommendation to the city council for a request for 42.3 acres to remove the age restriction, DSA-22-00044. With staff recommendations. And we'll have to vote on it.
So now I have a motion on the
I
floor.
second it.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded.
So motion is second. Do I have any other discussion? So the motion and the second is to forward a recommendation of approval to city council.
And on first.
Discussion? Yeah, you are.
So we gotta vote yea or nay.
I'm sorry, Albert, you are first to vote, yes. Any other conversation before we call for the vote?
This is terrible.
Right. It's what we do. It's what we get paid the big bucks for. All right.
It's eventually gonna be the city council that makes a decision.
Natalie, would you please call the roll?
Member Hubbard?
No.
Member Garza?
No.
Member Peters?
No.
Member Estrada?
Yes.
Member Dugan?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Benedict?
That was a nasty little look.
That's nasty. This is a tough decision. I get where these folks are coming from. You know, this was where they started. Absolutely, the needs in the community have shifted. I'm not sure this is the answer for those needs, but we got to do what we can to fulfill those needs. And, you know, again, landowners' rights, but they filled all the boxes, checked the boxes for it. I don't know, it's tough. I'll vote yes.
You had to, didn't you?
Oh,
Yeah.
look what I did.
Yeah, look what you did there. Look what you did there.
Chairman Miller,
Way to hand it over with a 3-3 vote right now. Appreciate that.
I'm sorry, I'll switch.
I
don't like it either way.
Yeah, I even have to sympathize with the landowners from the standpoint of, I understand what you were said or told and what was presented, but at the same time, I have to stick true to my firm beliefs of the landowner has rights, and so I will vote yes and let you guys duke it out with the council.
Goes to the council.
All right, motion approved. Good luck to each party at the next endeavor at city council.
It's been a while since I was 50.
That was a fun one.
Yeah?
Sometimes I feel you should
I know, but it's not,
Yeah.
it's not, it's not.
It's really up to the city council.
It's been a long time since I was 55, but boy, I've never felt so wanted.
I mean, I just had that happen to us. We didn't, Arizona Water,
Yeah.
they tore down the house.
You know
they
what,
lined
I
it.
thought when they were you wanna come here and move down to 45. That's an
I'm
easy
fine with
one.
that, yeah. When- That's what they
We were
said.
down to 45, but then when he told me he wanted the whole thing.
I know.
This was.
Because that other place is 55.
You know what's funny? Dennis' wife was on the city council.
Oh, Fitzgibbons? Yeah. Oh, okay.
All right, so while everybody's clearing out, we're gonna take a quick recess just to freshen up.
Yeah. So that cleared the place, huh?
Guys ready? We're gonna get this party started again. Bringing us back into session. Public hearing consideration approval requested by Douglas Nixon. Two separate topics, DSA 21-00237 conditional use permit and DSA 21-00238 major site plan.
Hi, Chairman Miller, members of the commission. Next item on the agenda is for a conditional use permit to allow a convenience food restaurant in a B2.
Nice.
And a major site plan to allow the placement of approximately 665 square foot drive-through coffee shop. This is located in the Safeway development, just west of the northwest corner of Treacle and Cottonwood on Cottonwood. So here's the conditional use permit and major site plan review criteria that's outlined in the staff report. As you can see, many of these overlap, so I'll be looking at these together. These are the three that I'll be highlighting. So looking at the property, the proposed drive-through is located within the B2 zone and is allowed with the conditional use permit, is located within the Safeway subdivision, and meets the building setback and is adequate for on-site parking, retention, facilities, and landscaping. In addition, there will be a 3-foot screened wall along Cottonwood that will match the existing wall there that will help screen the drive-through as well. And next slide will show this a little better, but I just want to point that the drive is a little further west for the Safeway parking lot. In looking at the impact to the existing anticipated traffic and parking conditions, there is access adjacent to the two existing driveways on Cottonwood. There's also opportunity to access O'Neill Drive and Treacle through the existing site. And the drive-through queuing allows for 10 vehicles. A traffic impact statement was provided and deemed appropriate by our city traffic engineer. And based on the anticipated trip generation, and it will generate approximately 43 weekday peak hour trips during the morning. And the existing roadway network and proposed circulation is adequate, and there's efficient internal circulation proposed. Here are some of the renderings of the building. And with regards to notification, staff met or exceeded those requirements, and I did not receive any inquiries or comments regarding this project. So with that, staff recommends the Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit and associated conditional use resolution for the convenience food restaurant establishment within a B2 zone, and staff recommends the Planning Commission approve the major site plan. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions for staff? Member Hubbard?
I have a question.
Yeah, let's talk about
Just a
it.
quick question, because there's going to be the new car wash going down a little bit further. And to me, going in and out of Safeway at this first exit, seems like there's going to be a traffic jam right to the east side of the building. Can we flop it and make it so the traffic goes out to the backside in between, I don't know where the Pinal County? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
You're confusing me. Are you talking about the
It just
the
seems
overall complex or the coffee shop?
The coffee shop, okay, the
Okay.
coffee shop, you go in one way and you go out, and when you go out, you're headed towards the entrance to Safeway
Yeah,
and
yeah.
where the new car wash is
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
be. But I'm thinking, if we flip it so you go out towards this,
Yeah.
the west side,
West.
then you would have less traffic flow. Because the only reason I'm saying this is because when we have our salad and go here in town, same concept, and there's always a traffic jam.
There'd be a queuing and parking issue, probably flipping it. I'm not saying it
Yes.
couldn't happen, but there would be a,
It's just a suggestion.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
all. That's all I'm seeing. Because already there's a lot of traffic just going in and out of Safeway just there. And if we have this new car wash coming in, I don't know how many vehicles are going to be coming and going that way.
Mhm.
And then in the morning, you're going to have people coming in to get coffee and there's just one way in and one way out? And
Well, they can still get to that
That's my
Privet
question.
Drive. Right, I mean, they come out and just go up and around it again.
No.
No, you can.
Yeah, they would still have access to.
You still have access to that southern.
But you still have to go back around.
Right.
Yeah, they gotta go back around.
But I could either wait to try and get out.
But people
Or-
like me always want to take the shortcut.
I like that awareness.
This is all
I appreciate
about-
the self-awareness there.
I'm just saying, I wouldn't do that. I would go that way and it just, there would be a cluster, I think.
Okay,
That's my opinion.
that's fair. We're all allowed one. Member Dugan, you gotta.
Yeah, but go back to the full print of the parking lot. There we go. Okay, so, look, they got that Dutch Brothers coffee out there near the freeway that comes in, and they probably got room to park, get in line about 8 or 10 cars, but they go out on the street, and there's probably at least 7 or 8 cars in the morning, It is, believe me, and I think this is gonna be the same way. I think you're gonna have, she's right, we're gonna have a major traffic jam here. The cars are gonna back up
They're gonna back up
all the way,
down.
the cars are gonna back up all the way to the Safeway entryway. Guarantee it.
Yeah, but they could easily
And
just.
you need to have cars for 15, 20 cars.
You could easily have them go north
They
south
won't.
right there.
I'm telling you.
And you can S it in. They could go out there and mitigate if they needed to.
Well, then they're
think-
blocking parking in the parking lot, right?
Well,
I
there's-
just don't want to create another Starbucks, right?
But the problem is if you
Because
flipped
that's
it the
a
other way,
mess.
then the queuing line ends up in the street.
Then they'll back up in the cars that, when they pick up their coffee, if they go west, then it's still gonna
Yeah, but
be a
if
jam because they're trying to get out of.
Well,
But you got-
Dwayne, what is the queuing that's required for a drive-through situation like this? Is 6 cars enough queuing for a coffee shop?
This one's 10.
Use.
This one's queued for 10.
Oh, I'm showing.
It shows
oh,
6, but it's
oh,
queued
okay,
for
It's
10.
10, okay.
Yeah, and that's more than our requirement. Let me talk a little bit about what we did with this, because we had the same concern as you're all talking about.
Yeah.
And what we required, and you can't compare scooters to a Dutch Brothers. Dutch Brothers really generates a huge amount of traffic, and these other coffee shops don't. And one of the reasons we know that.
Wait a minute, scooters might do bang up business here.
Wow.
Wait a minute. I'm just saying, you never know.
So we asked them to, we had our consultant that does traffic impact analysis look at this, and we also asked them to look at their other stores and give us a bunch of data. And they gave us a huge amount of data that shows how much queuing length they have and how many vehicles. When Jacqueline said 43 vehicles in the peak AM hour, that's not a huge amount of cars. And so we wouldn't even require a traffic impact analysis. But I know we'd be concerned about this, so we asked them to give us more information than normal. We could have just told them, yeah, 43 cars, go ahead and build it, but we knew there were issues here. So when it got all done, we don't feel that it's going to create the big traffic jam in this area. And even when you add in the car wash, they don't generate a huge amount of traffic either, especially in the AM. And so the two of them together don't have enough traffic to require a traffic impact analysis. So I'm not saying there won't be any issues, but I don't think it'll be horrible.
I will admit that there was a lot of traffic concerns about the car wash, which I know that we're not talking about the car wash, but we're talking about traffic and generation, about the combination. There's a car wash over on Pinal. It's right by my house, and traffic was like, oh, it's going to be the end of the world. And literally, I've never had an issue. Like, it's like they don't even exist, but there's always cars there. But they've never hindered outside of before we were in there, and it was just dirt. It's never changed. Like, and so, because it's so spread out, it's one car releasing occasionally. It's not like there's a line of 10 cars that all just got washed and are trying to get out of there. It's such a,
But you don't have a grocery store there too, and Safeway's pretty busy.
yeah, I know, I shop it.
I do
Because it's right
too.
around
I
the corner
just-
from my house.
Me too.
And so,
But I'm just saying, I go to Starbucks a lot and it's just constantly packed. Forget it.
Well, hopefully you'll go to Scooters now a
I
lot
was
too.
planning on it, that's what I'm saying.
Trying to get you guys some business over here. I think it's fair. I think my concern, putting it the other way, is I get the exit side of it, but my concern is the ingress side of it would cause backups, and that would be a problem because that other side of it will become a main ingress egress for Safeway because of the other ones already starting to get, I mean, with the fence line there and then the car wash there, people will probably start coming in this other one first instead of going to the next one. But
It kind of reminds me, like Salad and Go here, the way to go in and out of it, it's backwards. And I don't know how many times there's not enough room from people coming off of Florence, going to Dunkin' and going into Salad and Go. There's just, the flow is not right. And this just kind of reminds me of that, that's all.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
My opinion.
Good question. Any other questions? No? No other questions? All right. Applicant. Representative, like to come forward? Thank you for being here. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Kim Williford. Address is 13664 Plaster Circle, Broomfield, Colorado. I am here. I work for Scooters Corporate. This location is actually a franchise location. Our franchisees are here as well. Doug and Diane live in Casa Grande, and they are local to the area. So I would like to address some of the concerns. We have a presentation that we can show as well if there's additional questions. Exiting, if we were to exit out the left side of the site instead of the right side, we would start creating a backup of people trying to get out of the parking lot, which would then in turn back up the actual drive-through lane. So we'd stop the progress exiting the site. And also we do have a lot of information. You might be familiar with Starbucks and with Dutch Brothers, but I would ask how long it might take for you to get through Starbucks and Dutch Brothers. Scooters' whole concept is on speed. So it's speed of service. We have proven information that we have provided that whenever you go through our drive-through, you're in that drive-through for 3 minutes. So from the time that you order, for the time that you pull away from the window, it's no more than 3 minutes. And we actually average 2.5 minutes. And we can share that information with you. If you'd like to share the presentation or...
You want to see the presentation? She would like to see the presentation.
Perfect.
I'm excited.
So Scooters Coffee was founded in 1998. The founder is still actually active in the company. We are a franchisee company. Our core competency statement that you can see there is that we deliver high quality, high margin drinks through a drive-through, fast and friendly. So the whole point is that we don't target to Dutch Brothers. Dutch Brothers targets to millennials. They take orders in person, they chit-chat with you, they hold you around for a long time, and that does create backups in traffic. Starbucks is there for the parent taking their kid to school, for the person trying to get to work. They can jump in, they can jump out. We take advantage of the traffic that's already in the area. And if we have more than 10 people sitting in our drive-through, people aren't gonna sit in our drive-through. So we make sure that we move them through fast. Next slide. So our mission is to create an amazing experience for each life we touch. And it's not every life we touch, it's each life we touch, because we want to make sure that every person that comes through our drive-through feels special. And we do live our core values. Our franchisees do. They are selected based on these core values as well as all the people that work in our locations. This again is just the site location. It's showing the entrance coming into the site, how people will enter the site from the east there. They'll circle around and then they can go back out the west or the east side access. Next slide. This right here kind of shows some cars stacked up with numbers on them so that you can see 9, 10 would be the last one. I just didn't want to cover up the words that say drive-through only, so I didn't put the 10th car on there. But this does kind of talk about our operations. So we place our menu board at the 6th car. We do that on purpose because we assume that we spend 3 minutes per car, and based on our ticket time, that's what you're looking at there. So 30 seconds at the window times 6 cars equals 3 minutes. So we've gone through a lot of studies to show that the 6-car is the optimal location for our business. So that when you pull up to the window, depending on how long it takes you to pay, your drinks are sitting there ready. We call them hangers. They're sitting there and waiting for you. Next slide is just the elevations, which you already saw. And then the next slide, we have our peak traffic counts. This is what we were talking about. Obviously, the 7 to 9 a.m. is our busier hour. It does fall off in the afternoon. We might pick up some business in the afternoon as far as parents picking up kids and going home after work. But our peak hours are in the earlier morning hours there. This next slide just shows, we do have the information that Dwayne referenced. We have loop timers that we print on all of our locations. So we know exactly how long people spend at our menu boards, exactly how long they spend at the window, and what their orders are. So this is an average for an entire day throughout the system, so 256 cars per day. So if you were to take the numbers on the previous sheet, it would add up to around, it actually comes out to around 260. So this is just under that average. This is a screenshot of what our online system that we use to track all of our locations. All of our franchisees and locations are measured on this criteria. So at the top, you can see the goals. So 3 seconds, greet. That means you pull up to the menu board, welcome to Scooters, 3 seconds. People ordering at the menu board, our goal is to have people ordered and move down the line in 30 seconds. And then whenever they get to the window to pick up, the average is 40 seconds. So that makes that 3-minute lane total from when you place your order to when you get your order. And as you can see at the bottom here, our system is actually beating that 3-minute, and we're sitting at 2 minutes and 49 seconds for system-wide. And everyone gets a green dot if they're doing good, yellow dot if they're doing average, and red if they need to improve. So this is something that Doug and Diane will be able to check on their store in live time. Literally, when our franchisees open, they're sitting there just watching this ticket timer, watching to make sure that people are doing what they're supposed to be doing. So it's really exciting to be able to do that. Next slide. This is a video. This is one of our busiest locations. So Scooters was founded in Omaha. So this location's in the Omaha area. Does it hit? Can you hit play on that? If you hover.
Do we have that capability?
So this is just showing people moving through the drive-through. They pull up, they pay, they get their drink, they get their credit card back, and they're on their way.
They're just waiting to get out. They can't get on to, they're not gonna be able to get on Cottonwood.
That's exactly.
So this is just, there's a few cards in here, so you can watch as many as you want. But there's some people paying with the app, some people paying with credit cards, but they get their items and they move on their way. Goes, he's out.
There's probably 20 cars in that line.
That's my whole thought.
So I don't know what your experience at Starbucks and Dutch Brothers might have been in the past. I know that going through a Starbucks drive-through personally can be a little painful. Because one of those reasons is because Starbucks does have interior seating. Scooters being a drive-through only coffee kiosk, that is our focus, and that is our number one point of focus. So we don't do anything that could slow down this progress. We want to make sure that everyone can get their drinks and be on their way quickly. So.
You say that you're selling food there. I haven't seen any food go, just drinks. Do you sell donuts and orange juice?
Donuts and orange juice?
Yeah.
Orange juice.
Orange juice. So we don't sell donuts. We have a food slide that we'll get to here in a second that we could address some of that. So this is just talking about the different options on payments. So we do have a Scooters app. And with the Scooters app, you can just scan the barcode and it's linked to your credit card. So obviously that tender time is the quickest. Credit cards are still the most lengthy, and sometimes cash is actually quicker on our items here. So that's just the last 12 months. Here's the impact of food on business. So we do have at least 2 ovens in each of our locations to facilitate speed of service. If we did find that the location was using more food items, there's some locations in Texas that people like to eat a lot. So they can have 3 ovens. We do have room for expansion. The longest cook time on any of our food items is 38 seconds, and that is actually a maple waffle sausage breakfast sandwich. But all of our food items are prepared off-site, so they're just warmed up in the location. And actually, Scooters in Omaha, we have it's called harvest roasting. So most of the food items we make ourselves in Omaha and ship them out to our locations. So food represents about 16% of the sales. And this is back in November. Here's the last numbers that I had pulled. November is usually a pretty heavy food month. Everybody's getting their pumpkin spice things and all of their muffins and things like that. So that gives a little bit of idea. So about 82 food items per store per day, about 6 per hour. So it is mostly drinks. This is just a chart of what our most popular items are. Again, this is all stuff that we track daily on who's selling what. So these are the items. So the breakfast sandwiches, we do have breakfast burritos as well as bagels. And
Dugan would like to know if you brought samples. Sorry.
They thought about
Sorry,
it.
I'm teasing.
You could bribe us.
I'm teasing. I'm teasing.
No.
All right.
Well, the sooner we can get approved, the sooner you can come and get samples. So that is it for our presentation. If you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Also, Doug and Diane are here if you have any questions for them specific to themselves and the site.
I'm going to ask one more question, just.
Doesn't have to be about traffic, does it?
And I don't want to stir Chris up again, but if you could put back the drive-through slide that she had on the screen, where it had the cars and the numbers. No, not that one. The one kind of back where it had the number of cars.
The 9.
The 9.
And I'm thinking of Wendy's
There you go.
when I think of this. There's no way to exit a car onto the other driveway with just a curb opening
You mean
No.
to the north?
to
There
the, yes.
For them- To the
Well,
west.
no,
To
to
the
the west.
To the west.
To allow for people
if
to
you can
leave.
go back to the aerial. So I'd like to point out how close that exit would be to that drive. So if someone was pulling out, they would not be able to pull far enough forward that they would still be blocking that drive-through window, trying to exit out. So by having people exit around the front of the building, that way when people are picking up their food, they're able to get out of the way so that the next car can come in. We would start creating a traffic backup.
I think you're
people
going to
trying
have
to
that
get out.
problem regardless with the people trying to make a left-hand turn on Treckle, backing up all the way to the drive-through exit. Just keep that in the back of your mind. Because
Yeah,
that-
I mean, at that point, it'd have to be about another 10 cars. And I wouldn't sit there and wait for 10 cars. I mean, they do have other ways to exit. They could go around the car wash and go out at the light,
Yeah,
things
they
like
could.
that.
That's only
So they
6
do have
minutes.
other
You're still
ways to
beating
get out.
Starbucks.
Huh?
I said even at 12 cars, you're still beating Starbucks. It's only 12 minutes. I'm teasing.
Yeah.
I think that, I mean, I don't know, that parking lot is very big. And I think that there's a lot of opportunities to get out of there.
There is.
And-
But that driveway on that west side is not used.
So,
But it will be now. Like, that's
Well,
where I'm
no,
looking
it
at it from the
won't.
standpoint of,
It
And-
won't. I'm
No,
telling you, it
because they're
won't.
going to be crossing the drive-through entrance traffic.
Exactly.
And people aren't going to let them make a left to kind of get around, and it's going to be a whole.
what the?
So, and when we pick our sites, I mean, they can attest to this. So we don't approve sites that are not
I
on
know,
the
but
morning
you could
side
come
of
here and
traffic.
get out. You could
Who's
come
gonna
over here and get out. You could come
No
here and
one's
get
gonna,
out. You could-
everyone's gonna take the easiest way possible. Just like at Starbucks.
Yeah, but the easiest way possible may not be that big old line of cars where you're concerned. To me, I would say there's a big old line of cars. I'm gonna go out the other way. That would be
Okay.
the easiest way.
No.
So I mean, and internal traffic control is somewhat
No,
out
I
of
know,
our purview
Yeah.
as
I
well.
was just asking.
And God willing that there is that much traffic, we do also have line busting equipment. So we can have people out there controlling
Control
traffic
people.
as well as,
I hope they have that kind of problem.
yeah, so.
Okay.
Because
I was just thinking-
scooters will not be successful if people pull up and there's that many cars in line. They're just gonna leave and go somewhere else, so.
The coffee's not that good?
No, the
Yeah,
coffee's
you didn't
good.
speak
I'm
to the
teasing,
good
sorry. You
coffee.
set yourself up for that one. I'm just joking.
I am all for a fast coffee.
Me too.
Any other questions for the applicant?
No, sir.
I heard they were really good. Heard really good reviews about them.
Good. Is that you have a question?
Nope. that's
Oh,
it.
okay. Thank you very much for
Thank
being
you.
here. Thank you for your presentation. Appreciate it. All right, so at this time, then I would open it up to the public. Would anybody from the public like to speak to this agenda item? I'll give you a whole 3 minutes if you want to talk. No? Okay. I'll close the public portion. Bring it back to the commission. We remember we got 2, so do one at a time.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I move to approve DSA-21-00237, a conditional use permit to allow for a convenience food restaurant and with a B2 zone, and also the recommendations from the staff.
You, I'd just like a clarification that you would also include the resolution? Yes, say yes.
Yes.
Yes, there you go. Thank you. And the second agreed? Any discussion? Hearing none, Natalie, would you please call the roll?
Member Hubbard?
Yes.
Member Garza?
Aye.
Member Peters?
Aye.
Member Estrada?
Yes.
Member Dugan?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Benedict?
Yes.
Chairman Miller?
Yes.
And Mr. Chairman, I move to make a motion to approve DSA-21-00238, major site plan for approximately a 665 square foot building for a coffee shop.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? Hearing none, Natalie, would you please call the roll?
Member Hubbard?
Yes.
Member Garza?
Aye.
Member Peters?
Aye.
Member Estrada?
Yes.
Member Dugan?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Benedict?
Aye.
Chairman Miller?
Yes. Awesome. Congratulations, guys. Good luck. Excited? I live right around the corner from there.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for being patient as well. You got to,
We moved down here to sit in the sun, and I got bored after retiring for 2 years. Back to work.
couldn't sit still, so you had to go open a coffee shop, huh? All right. I like it.
I'm excited.
From Washington, competing with Starbucks. Imagine that.
They did live right across, they live in the lakes, right across from town. I read this Gibbons.
Oh, yeah?
It'll probably be a gold mine, that part of town, you know that?
Yeah, because then people won't go inside to Starbucks.
I've never
We'll
been in
put one other project over.
In Safeway?
At the one in
Yeah.
Safety?
I meant the drive-through one. Go for the drive.
No. We want to talk about Starbucks real quick. We're trying to talk, we're trying to have a conversation.
Once you put one there.
All right. Fine, we'll move on to the next agenda item. All right, public hearing and consideration forward a recommendation of approval of the city council requested by the city of Casa Grande for a zoning code text amendment. Jacqueline, take that one away.
All right. DSA 220063 is a zoning code text amendment regarding the Board of Adjustments. The zoning code text is to amend section 17.08.080, membership of the Board of Adjustments. One of the proposed changes to the Board of Adjustment is to modify the terms of its members from 4 years to 3 years. And the reasoning behind this is to change for consistency among the city's boards, commissions, and committees. Just for a little background, the city is in the process of revamping some of its boards, commissions, and committees and making them more consistent, so that is the reason for this change. And the reasoning the Planning Commission is hearing this request is because it's amending the zoning ordinance, and per the code, any amendment must be heard by the Planning Commission with a recommendation to City Council. So with that, staff recommends Planning Commission forward a favorable recommendation to City Council for adoption of the proposed ordinance amending section 17.08080. Happy to answer any questions.
Man, I bet you there's a ton of questions on this one. No?
They're not limiting our terms, are they? We got 2 3-year terms, are they expanding ours at all?
Yeah, you have to be on here for life.
You guys are.
No, this is just for, because they currently have a 4-year, right? And we're just changing it from a 4-year to a 3-year
Correct.
to align with all of the boards, because they're trying to get all the boards to 3-year
Also,
terms.
We're gonna go to a 4-year term then.
What?
We're a 3-year term now.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go to a 4-year term
No,
now?
everybody's going to 3.
The mayor is going to 40.
Don't worry about the mayor. We're not talking about the mayor, we're talking about boards and commissions. We're talking about boards and commissions here.
It's getting hilarious.
It's getting late. All right.
Guy needs some rest.
Any questions?
Somebody make a motion, there we go.
I'm waiting for the motion.
It ain't coming from me.
No question.
Okay, yeah? No?
Oh.
I make a motion to forward a recommendation of approval to City Council for a request by the City of Casa Grande.
Oh.
Anybody from the public like to speak to this agenda item? Seeing none, I close the public portion.
Thank you. Now we can make.
And I'll complete my motion for the amendment, section 17-17.08.080. I can, for a membership of the Board of Adjustments.
Should have started on that second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Natalie, would you please call the roll?
Member Hubbard?
Yes.
Member Garza?
Aye.
Member Peters?
Aye.
Member Estrada?
Yes.
Member Dugan?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Benedict?
Yes.
Chairman Miller?
Yes. All right.
Approved.
I thought we were removing the public comment in our meetings. Is that not discussed in one?
We removed it during COVID, and we put them back on.
I feel like that was an inappropriate addition.
Really?
Call the public.
Pardon me.
No call, no public portion closed. No action required, but we do have some really fun things to talk about. Director, run us through here. We've got,
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. So, what I want to talk about briefly this evening is an amendment to the residential design guidelines, PAD residential design guidelines. They are not on your agenda for a vote tonight, and we're going to put them on your agenda for your next meeting, your May meeting. But, so we're going to pass these out tonight, so you have them, so you can, read them over, think about the changes, and I'm going to walk you through what the changes are here, because there's not that many. But I just want to give you a precursor on that. But probably more importantly, I want to talk to you just for a few minutes about why we're amending them. And I really want to share with you a presentation I made to City Council, and just so you have some background and some context. You know, we've, over the last few months, we've had a number of subdivisions that were zoned PAD, asked for R2 rezonings. And we've approved a number of those, and you know, after approving them, I've heard some feedback from certain citizens and other folks who said they had some concerns about that activity. So the first thing I did is I kind of ran a little analysis, and you have this table here that gives you a quick summary of all of those subdivisions that we rezoned from PAD to R2, and kind of, you know, what the results were. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more, but I'm just going to give you the bottom line result that those rezonings potentially increased the lot count by 41%. That's a lot bigger number than I was expecting. If you recall, you know, what's driving the bus on a lot of this is this new law that allows, or actually requires, the Arizona Department of Water Resources to issue an increased number of certificates of assured water supply for subdivisions if the developer can prove that the increase in lots uses no more acre feet in water than the prior certificate was allocated for. It remains to be seen whether or not these land developers are going to be able to convince ADWR that they can achieve a 41% increase in lots with the same amount of water usage, but that's their requirement to do so before we bring the final plats forward. But it's kind of an eye-opening number, I think. So I'm just going to take a moment here to run you through a little bit of background on the context of platted lots in Casa Grande and cause, and and what you've kind of been dealing with through this rezoning process. So, as you know, you can't create a subdivision in Casa Grande unless your subdivision has a certificate of assured water supply for each lot, guaranteeing that there's a sustainable 100-year supply of water for each of those lots. So, and we also know that currently the Arizona Department of Water Resources is not issuing any additional certificates of assured water supply in the Pinal County AMA because they believe that the groundwater allocation has been already fully allocated or even over allocated with prior decisions. So what does that mean? That means that when no new subdivisions can be created in Casa Grande, that unless they already have cause, unless new water resources can be found to support those subdivisions, or new water providers come into play to provide water to those subdivisions. So what we have, the current situation is the vacant lots that we have that have prior approved cause is what we can expect to be used to fuel our future residential growth. So we've done some analysis. We know how many of those lots we have. We know where they're located. So this screen in front of you gives you the quick summary. We have approximately 2,775 vacant lots in final plats that are all recorded that have cause. Now that number changes every day. Every day I issue a building permit, that number goes down, right? So I can't tell you what that number is today. That's about what it was when I wrote this presentation about 30 days ago. Happens to be that the Arizona Department of Water Resources also allocated certificates of assured water supply to preliminary plats back, and all these cause that we're talking about here, most of them were allocated in like the 2004, 2005, 2006 timeframe. So, 15, 16 years ago. So ADWR did in fact allocate certificates of assured water supply to preliminary plats. And we have about 13,000 of those. 7,000 of those are still zone PAD. We have rezoned a number of those that were PAD into the R2 zone. You can see we now have approximately 3,763 in the R2 zone. Most of those were zone PAD before our latest rezoning efforts. Some of them are actually residential subdivisions that we've zoned industrial and commercial, and just because they are really good industrial sites and they're really bad residential sites, but so those are unlikely to develop residentially. They'll probably develop industrially or commercially. We have a handful in other zone districts. We also, interestingly enough, ADWR actually allocated cause to condominium sites in many of our PADs. And so they weren't necessarily platted yet, but they were identified and they allocated. So we actually have about 3,200 cause for condominium lots that can be taken advantage. So you can see total there, you had about 19,000 vacant lots with cause. If you think that that's about 3 people per household, that means it's about 60,000 people that we can accommodate for our future growth. But when those vacant lots are consumed, there may not be future residential subdivisions in Casa Grande, again, unless we find additional water supplies or additional water providers are brought to the table, which is within the realm of possibility. But right now, this is what we know that we have to support our future residential growth, 19,000 vacant lots. Now, there are some exemptions of developments, residential developments, that do not need cause and can provide future housing opportunities for our residents. The state law says you don't need a cause if you create a subdivision with 5 or fewer lots. So you can do very small subdivisions and you don't need cause. You can do, Subdivisions can be created that are served by water companies with designation of assured water supply. Arizona Water is not one of those. Arizona Water can only supply subdivisions that have cause, essentially. But the Copper Mountain Ranch Water Company, which the city owns, can provide water to non-cause subdivisions, as well as Global Water Company, which potentially can provide water to some developments in the western side of our city at some point in the future. Apartments do not need cause. Doesn't matter how many, they don't need cause. It's not logical if you think about it, but it is what it is. So you don't need cause for apartments. You don't need cause for build-to-rent developments because, again, you're not subdividing them. And you don't need cause for manufactured home parks because, again, they're not in subdivisions. So there's a variety of housing types that can continue to develop with whether even when we exhaust all the cause that we might have associated with our vacant lots. The other thing that's really interesting in this world of allocation of cause is this new law that was passed last year, passed by the legislature, signed into law by the governor. And what it says basically is that if I own a subdivision that has vacant lots, and that subdivision has a cause for a number of lots, let's just say it's 100 lots, I can petition ADWR to increase my number of lots and the number of cause allocated to that subdivision if I can prove that there is a reduction, or at least no increase, in the total water demand for the subdivision. So an ADWR grants a certificate of assured water supply for this 100-lot subdivision. They say, oh yeah, here's 100 certificates for this subdivision, and by the way, here's the acre feet of water allocation associated with those cause. So as a developer under this law, I can go to ADWR and say, I want to increase my subdivision from 100 lots to 120, and here's my analysis that shows that I'm going to use no more water, no more acre feet of water than my prior 100-lot subdivision. Lots of things can happen that can cause that to be justified. There can be efficiencies in plumbing fixtures that have occurred since the cause was issued in 15 years ago. And probably more importantly, the biggest water savings is probably with landscaping, where they would impose CCNRs that would restrict how much turf grass could be on each lot and restrict the type of landscaping to low water landscaping within the subdivision that would drastically reduce the amount of water consumption. Because frankly, the majority of water consumption for a single-family home is actually for landscaping, not internal use. Because of this law, that's what kind of drove your demand, your rezoning requests from PAD to R2, because those land developers were trying to get more lots in those subdivisions, and because they knew they could go to ADWR and petition ADWR for more cause. The problem they were faced with, land developers, is that our PAD zone had set lot sizes that our PAD residential design standards set lot sizes that did not allow them to increase the number of lots. If they could increase them, it was very little, right? So the land developers were seeking a zone district where they could have smaller lots and increase the number and then petition ADWR for the additional cause. So what you see on the screen is the same thing that we saw here, the same table. And so that those land developers kind of successfully met their objective of the rezoning and increasing the number of lots. Like I mentioned, 41% increase. But none of these have gone through ADWR approval process that I know of yet. So that remains to be seen how much increase ADWR will really approve. The other really interesting thing I think about this data that you see is, in the zone changes that we were granting, like in R2, you could do the minimum lot size is 5,000 square feet. So what this shows is that even though the lots can be made as small as 5,000 square feet, there's still a variety of lot sizes that were actually created in these R2 zones. You can see that about 51% were actually in that smaller range, but there's, a significant number of lots in each of these lot size categories that I have noted here. So those land developers are still providing a variety of lot sizes, probably to meet the different lot needs of the builders that they're selling to, because the builders have different house products that need different sized lots. So there's still a variety of lots being created, even though we've given developers the right with their R2 zoning to go down to 5,000 square foot minimum. So, as staff brought these R2 rezonings forward, and frankly, I'm going to tell you that when we were aware of this new law that allowed potentially increase in cause, we knew as a staff that was important for the community to try to allow some increase in cause, because that opens up the amount of additional residential growth we can have, kind of lifts that cap that I told you about of those 19,000 lots. But we knew that, we could not get there with the PAD zone. So that's why we suggested to land developers that the R2 zone and the R1A zone were potential alternatives. But as a staff level, we wanted to make sure that those new developments with higher densities had the same level of quality, if you will, of the PAD developments. So, as you know, we recommended conditions of record on all those R2 zones to try to impose upon them the same development standards that we had in our PADs in terms of lot layout and design, housing product, architectural requirements, landscaping, streetscape, entranceways, perimeter walls. The PAD residential design guidelines required 15% open space. The standard, just the standard R2 and R1A was only 10% open space. So even though staff was bumped it from 10 to 15, Planning Commission decided that 20% was a better standard, a more appropriate standard for the open space, and you started imposing a 20% open space requirement. I think basically with the thinking that the smaller lots provided less opportunity for recreational use on the lot itself, and we needed some additional open space within the development. I think it was totally appropriate to do so, but we imposed these new standards on our R2 subdivisions to try to create and maintain a quality product. However, there was, like I mentioned, I did hear some concerns about these R2, PAD to R2 zonings and the implications and the results of those. And the concerns, these were kind of the three concerns, I kind of paraphrase them, that I've heard. One, that there's that we should ensure that there's a variety of lot sizes, that they're not all 5,000 square feet. That we have to make sure we have adequate side yard setbacks to create appropriate spacing between homes, because one of the things that we were doing with the R2 zonings is allow the side yard setbacks to go from 5 and 10 in the PAD zoning to 5 and 5. So we were reducing the side yard setback. The other thing that was happening was the R2 zone and the R1A was allowing the lots to go to 45-foot width versus 55, which was the requirement in the PADs. So there was a concern that the narrower lots, 45-foot wide lots, were going to result in more congestion because of restricting the amount of on-street parking that was allowed. So think about it, with a 45-foot wide lot, you have a 20-foot wide drive, maybe a 25-foot wide drive, you end up with, maybe 20 feet between driveways, and then the appearance is, when you drive down the road, if people are parked in the street and the driveway, that it's just lined with cars and it's a more tight and congested feel. So those were the three main kind of criticisms that I had heard. Of course, when we looked at the data, we do see that there was continuation for lot mixing, and not all the spaces were 5,000 square feet. That's what the table shows, and I just reflected it here again. So there is, although the majority were in the smaller area, there was still a significant lot mixing occurring in these subdivisions. I think was true that the 45-foot wide lots will kind of feel tighter as a subdivision. You're going to just get more homes in that block, and probably less space between the cars that are parked on street. So I think it will feel tighter and more congested with the 45-foot wide lots. So when I went to City Council to talk about this, I said, okay, so knowing all this, I think you got a couple options, and here's what I think your options are. One, you can deny your future zone change requests to rezone PADs to R2 or to R1A, whatever. And so you can do that. That's in your prerogative, it's legislative right to do so. You can always deny rezonings. You have a lot of discretion because it's a legislative act. But the result of that is we would not increase the number of lots that have cause. The next thing we could do is you could just continue along the path that we're on and allow the PAD zonings to R2 and continue to impose those conditions that try to impose PAD-type conditions on the R2 and R1A subdivisions with a 20% open space requirement. Third option was, instead of the R2s, and you haven't seen this yet, but we had some people in the pipeline who are looking at the R1A zone, which allows basically the same size lot, but increases the side yard setbacks from 5 and 5 to 3 and 10. So it's a little bit of change. You know, you might get 13 feet between homes versus 10 side to side. So a little bit of change. I don't know if you really would notice it very much, but a minor amount of change. But that's certainly an option, and we certainly had people rezoning applications in the pipeline from PAD to R1A that were heading your way and council's way. The fourth option, which is the one we actually recommended to council, is, look, what's creating our problem with this is that our PAD residential design standards, the lot size the lot size requirement is too large to allow developers to achieve any amount of increased cause or very little increased cause. And if you recall, our current PAD residential design standards are this. The minimum lot size can be 6,000 square feet, okay? But any lot that's under 7,000 square feet has to have an equivalent number of lots that are over 8,000. So you don't get to have all 6,000 square feet. And in fact, you probably end up with an average of about 7,000. So any lot smaller than 7 has to have an equivalent number above 8. Not a bad concept. You want more variety in lot sizes. It's nothing wrong with that formula, other than if you're already designed to that, you can't increase it, right, and take advantage of any new cause. So my recommendation to council was modify your PAD residential design standards to take the minimum lot size from 6,000 down to 5,500. So that's a small change. The biggest change was, though, to allow up to 75% of those lots to be as small as 5,500, but 25% of them had to be at least 6,500. So there's it's a significant kind of reduction, if you will, of the lot size. However, for open space, the requirement is that we're going to recommend is that 15% open space is okay if you continue to meet those bigger lot standards of any lot, our current ones, of any lot that are smaller than 7,000 is matched with an equal number above 8. So if you have larger lots, you can still have the 15% open space. However, if you're not meeting that requirement and you're not, don't have a lot of 8,000 square foot and 7,000 square foot lots in your mix, you're going to be required to have 20% open space. We're recommending that the lot width be reduced, not from 55, not down to 45, but at 50, that we don't go below 50. And then we're recommending that the minimum side yard setbacks stay at 5 and 10, and they don't go to 5 and 5. So with a 50-foot wide lot, and if it was, 5,500 square feet, it's 50 feet wide by 110. That would be your smallest lot. You could put a 35-foot wide house on that, which is a pretty typical builder product, 35-foot wide house, and meet the 5 and 10s. So developers, builders will be able to create lots that are 55 feet wide and meet 50 feet wide, and meet the 5 and 10s. If a subdivider or land developer has a builder that has a 40-foot wide product, then he's going to create lots that are wider. He's going to create 55-foot wide lots because we're still going to require the 5 and 10s to be met. One thing I told council about the 5 and 10s side yard setbacks is in the width is that going from 45 to either 50 or keeping with 55 width is going to provide more on-street parking, kind of remove a little bit of that street congestion feel, a little bit of the tightness of the properties, and frankly, give people some access to their backyards. With a 10-foot side yard, you can actually still put a gate that you can either put a small trailer in your side yard, you can get to your backyard to put in a pool, get equipment back there. You can just get that access to your backyard that from time to time we all seem to kind of need to do work in our side and backyards. So you can't do that with the 5 and 5s. The 5 and 10s actually allow that to occur. So that was my proposal. You can see that I think that proposal kind of struck a nice balance in my mind of allowing developers to achieve a reasonable increase in the number of lots in those undeveloped subdivisions, so they can actually take advantage of any increased number of certificates of assured water supply that ADWR might allocate, and increase our potential growth within residential subdivisions. We think that the 50-foot wide width will allow the 5 and 10-foot setbacks to occur. The 20% open space will ensure the residents will have adequate areas in which to recreate and contribute to the appearance of a quality neighborhood. And it strikes a good balance between allowing additional residential density while maintaining a high standard of quality for our new neighborhoods. Council said, that sounds good. That's what we want to do. Pursue this option. So that's what I've done. I've modified our lots, our PAD residential design standards to implement those. And so I just wanted to give you the full briefing on this. We will come back in your May meeting with a public hearing and a essentially a short presentation and request in a public hearing, of course. I'm going to say that some builders, aren't probably happy with this. They would prefer to do 45-foot wide lots. But my gut sense is that, again, that this probably strikes a good balance between what their needs are and what the community needs are. So with that, I'm going to see if you have any questions or discussion on this topic.
Chairman, I have a question.
Yeah, Member
So,
Garza.
I was just wondering, when we sent those few subdivisions that we changed the open space, did that raise any concern? Did council notice, I guess is the question.
Oh, they noticed.
Council noticed and they thought it was a good idea.
Awesome. That's great. Okay, we're doing our job then.
No, we're not here to appease council.
Well, no, I feel like they're
Member
paying
Dugan.
attention.
This is all great, and it's all about affordable housing for Cascran. But the thing we aren't looking at is the probably 10 to 15% of the people with a higher income at this time that can afford a $700,000, $800,000, even $1 million house. There's no places in this town that will accommodate that right now, except the Coyote area, which is full now. They've got all the lots out. So in the meantime, we have all our managers and executives all heading to Chandler, Mesa, Gilbert, and everything else because we don't offer any of that. Is there anything that we can do to say if these guys, like we approved 1,250 some homes out there, that's mandatory that they have to take a part of that, 10% of it, and they got to start making some 15,000 square foot lots, a gated area, so the executives or the higher income people have a place to come, because right now they don't.
So that's a great observation, and I'm going to tell you, I tend to agree with your observation, right? I question myself, why don't some land developers try to create estate subdivisions, right?
Yeah.
Because clearly, if there's a market for it, you would think that the private sector would be responding to it and creating those subdivisions, right? So I can't tell you why a developer's not doing that.
Shouldn't we educate them a little bit that
So,
the demand is
so,
here?
so the market's not responding to that demand for whatever reason, right? But can you, as a regulatory requirement, require a certain percentage of the lots to be a certain size? The answer is yes, you could, right? If you wanted to say that, 10% have to be 10,000 square feet or more,
Yep.
you could do that, right? That's in your prerogative, because again, this is legislative. So yes, if that's something that you think you want to do, you could do it. Now, but what you're bumping up against is you're kind of bumping against a free market kind of approach a little bit, because you're dictating that, hey, you got to serve this market versus this market, versus leaving it up to the land developer.
Yeah, and, maybe only do it on the ones that are building 500 to 700 houses. They can afford to do that. I don't know what the answer is, but we need to figure it out.
I know the answer.
What's that?
I think that this is a great business venture for you, Mr.
Oh,
Dugan.
yeah.
Because if you feel so passionately
Well, I
about
don't
it,
have any water.
we'll
Well-
go find a subdivision,
Well,
buy
you-
it up, and change it from being.
No, but I'm talking about, we're letting all these subdivisions go to R2, and.
But you could
and-
buy
And
it.
nobody's taking care of, and those are the people you need here to get involved in the community, to have a little bit more
So,
income.
so every developer that's taking a subdivision from R1 to R2, there's an equal opportunity for somebody
I
to
understand
purchase that and
We're
take
gonna
it to
price.
larger lots.
So, but there's a couple other options here when you think about estate housing, because that's kind of what we're talking about. One is there's the option to create subdivisions with 5 or less lots. They have large lots and you don't need cause, right? It's an exemption under the cause rule. So you can make five lot executive estate housing subdivisions. That's one option. The other option is in the urban ranch, lot size is 1 acre and a quarter. You could probably take some, those urban ranch zonings and create, again, create 5 acre and a quarter kind of lots up to 5 of them, and do that. So there are some other options, but you certainly could do a regulatory approach. Now, I'm going to ask my staff here, and they're going to tell me the answer. I do think in the PAD design guidelines at one point, we did have a requirement for large lots. What was that requirement? Do you recall?
It was sites that were over a certain acreage, I want to say like 160 acres, had to provide a certain percentage of lots that were, like 10% of the lots had to be 1 acre or over.
So we actually did have that requirement in a prior version of our PAD residential design guidelines. We can bring that back just to tell the commission what that was at our next hearing, and you can decide if you want to include that or not.
Let's look at it, anyway.
I can bring that back for you.
Okay. I appreciate that.
Member Benedict, please.
None of these rules stop a developer from making those big lots.
Right.
No, that's true.
I mean, they could do
That's-
that, they could do that very thing. They could make 10% of them those large lots, and they would fit these,
They can make 100% of them if they so chose.
right, and they would fit these guidelines. I get where we're going, that where Mr. Dugan wants to go is to encourage it, but, you know,
How do you
it's,
go about it?
we are not discouraging, and I guess is my point, is my question,
Why
and
we,
that was my
we
point.
need to do something to them so that we encourage it. You're right on that one.
So look, if you want, there's another option. When I first went to city council on this presentation, the proposal was to make sure that it's all 20% open space, because that's what we were doing, right? And the city attorney actually said to me, he said, Paul, what you're doing here, you're kind of discouraging, disincentivizing the larger lots. Because what if they wanted to have a lot of 8,000 square foot lots? Shouldn't you give them a little break on the open space? And I
Yeah.
said, you know what, you're right. So that's why the 15%. We could take that concept further and say, look, if your smallest lot is 10,000 square feet, you only have to do 10% open space. We can do that, right? If that's something that you want us to present to you as well as an option, to kind of incentivize larger lots.
Question for you. We had some great conversation about side setbacks. But did we take a look at front and rear? Front's harder because I know we need a certain distance for a car, but maybe rear setbacks that would allow us to keep the width but increase number of lot sizes because they're not as deep.
So first off, I'm going to say in the PAD, we don't dictate the front nor the rear setbacks, just the sides, okay?
Okay.
So it's total flexibility. Builders will tell you that they need a certain lot depth because the housing product that they're, in the housing layouts that they're selling these days are very deep homes.
Yeah.
They're like 70 feet deep, 75 feet deep, but they're not not as wide, right? Also, the thing to keep in mind is, as a land developer, I want to make my lots as narrow as I can because the narrower my lot, the less road and water and sewer infrastructure I have to build per lot.
Right.
And that's a big, so a 45-foot wide lot versus a 55 is a big differential in the infrastructure cost.
Yeah, no. So we don't have no restriction though on front and rear. So if somebody came to us and said, hey, you can spit over your fence at your neighbor's house.
It's what
Technically.
Yes, you would have
Okay.
veto power.
You're good. No,
You
you're
have
good. I just
ability-
want to make sure we didn't have like a
No.
minimum 25-foot setback in the backyard
We
that we
don't.
were hindering.
No.
And since that's not included, I'm good. I'm happy. That's all I was curious about.
Okay.
Always down to money.
Do we allow exemptions for people if they said no on-street parking? Or
Okay.
Z-lots or
Well, first-
unique
okay,
builds?
So the answer is yes. In the PAD design standards, there's still a provision for exceptions, right? Exceptions, exemptions, variances, where they can say, we have a unique product, and these standards don't fit this product, and here's what we want to build, and here's why we think our standard is as good or better than your standard. And you have the right, and council has the right to say yes or no on that.
Okay.
Right.
Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Yeah, would that include like alleys and rear garages?
Nobody puts those on there. There's no alleys.
No?
That's a,
They don't allow that anymore.
hey, you
Yeah.
potentially
Probably not
could,
gonna happen with
Yeah.
the street.
if the developer wanted to.
Yeah, they could. Last one I
Potentially.
saw was out in Verado, out west.
What was the question?
No, like if they decided they wanted a product that would have alleys and
Oh,
rear
yeah,
rear
like Verado.
garages,
Yeah, rear
rear
garages,
garages.
Oh, yeah, like Verado, the new urbanism stuff?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
I love that. That'd be great. Staff would support that if somebody comes with that. We'd say, we'd embrace that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I guess you call it alley.
Okay,
On the street.
so what I heard is we're gonna bring back the revisions in May for formal consideration. We'll give you some information on the incentivizing less open space for larger lots, and we'll tell you what the old regulatory larger lot requirement was in a prior version for your consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Now, the next one, I'm going to go really fast on.
I got a lot of questions on the next one.
So, can you pass that out for me? So, what Natalie is passing out here is a total rewrite of our parking code called Chapter 17.56 in the zoning ordinance. So, we've rewritten the parking code. I've rewritten it to be, kind of reflect what I'm going to call today's best development standards that are out there with any community, right? We've done a lot of research, and so we've tried to simplify it. I'm going to tell you that in general, we've reduced the parking requirement because as planners, we don't want to provide more parking than we really need because more parking just creates environmental problems with urban heat, a buildup, stormwater runoff. So we're not a real fan of parking that we don't need, but we understand you have to have adequate parking so you don't create parking congestion or street congestion and other problems. So we try to reduce the parking where appropriate. We try to streamline the code, make it very readable, very usable, put some graphics in. And that's a draft you have. And so the areas that are kind of highlighted in yellow, I know we need more work on that. The other document you have is called the Access Management Standards. And that controls things like where driveways can be built on streets, the spacing between driveways, the spacing from a driveway to an intersection. And then there's also, well, I think it's pretty much what it is just the access points, right, Dwayne, for the driveways and streets?
Yeah, but it also has traffic impact analysis.
Right. It changes the scope and the type of traffic impact analysis we do, gives a little more detail. The parking code itself does not, even though it might have an access section in the parking code, it just references that you have to comply with the access management standards, okay? So we kind of take the access stuff out of the parking code in the zoning ordinance, which is in there today, and just put it all in the access management standards. So both of these documents are going to come back to you in June. They're going to go to your June meeting. We're going to take them back to council for a study session in mid-May. So we're going to go to council first with a study session mid-May, see what kind of comments we get from council, and then we're going to bring them back to you in the first meeting, in your June meeting, and then we're going to go back to council for their second meeting in June for first reading. So that one's 2 months away, but I wanted to give you some chance to look through it. If you have any questions as you look through it, if you have questions in the parking stuff, ask me. If you have questions on the access management standards, ask Dwayne. So just wanted to get that out a little early for you, give you some time to read it over and ask us any questions you might have. So that's all I have, Mr. Chair, on that item.
Now we have a presentation.
Yeah, and then we're gonna wrap this up. All right, so, tonight we're just introducing, you might have heard that we're working on a Florence Boulevard streetscape project, design concept report. And this is kind of the introduction for the Planning Commission. There will be, you'll see this quite a bit more throughout as we move through the process, and we'll get feedback from Planning Commission, council, all other stakeholders within the city. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our design team. It's Jeff Velasquez and Kurt Monte of J2, and they'll go ahead and run through the presentation real quick for you.
Poor things.
By all means, take your time.
So sorry.
You guys have earned it. Earned it by being here all night long. And the commission, I'm sure, is more than willing to have you take as much time as you need.
Yeah.
That'll conclude the presentation. Thank you. Have a good night. We'll keep this. Thank you. We'll keep this brief. Good evening. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, thanks for having us. We'll keep it very brief. My name is Jeff Velasquez. I'm a principal landscape architect with J2 Design. We've done quite a bit of work for the city of Casa Grande through the years, as Kurt Monti, Senior Landscape Architect and Project Manager with us. So I'm just going to go through it real quickly. 4-mile corridor for Florence Boulevard from I-10 over to Pinell through the downtown area, and we're theming and coming up with conceptual design to enhance this corridor as a major entry and major destination for residents and visitors for the downtown. One thing, kind of just talk a little bit about us and kind of some of the things we've done. We're landscape architects and civil engineers, one office here local, right at the Tempe-Phoenix border. And it's really important for us to build on history, to build on a sense of place and a sense of community, and not take what we've done in one community and just kind of place it in another. So everything we're going to do here, working with your staff, will be themed accordingly. And right now we're researching the history, and there's some great rich history here. And that'll be built into the theme. It'll be built into telling that story and telling that sense of place for the community. A few things that we've done as civil engineers and landscape architectures, like, planners as well. A few projects real quickly. Downtown Tolleson redevelopment. We worked on that, opened about 7 years ago. It's about 1 mile of corridor theming in a downtown area, but it's about a half mile of real intensive downtown development as well. So that was a road right sizing from 5 lanes to 3 there, custom paving, artwork, Wi-Fi speaker, plazas, and landscape and water features as well. A lot of that was tailored towards the Latino influence there. They have a very, very good, rich cultural history, and so that was reflected into a lot of the theme. We won't go into that, lots of detail there, but theming things to really evoke the sense of place. Downtown Chandler, we've been intimately involved for the last 12 years on multiple projects, including Arizona Avenue in the downtown, really creating art systems for major festivals and major senses of destination and senses of place, signage, wayfinding, custom light fixtures that we helped design, art systems, tile that was done by local artists and that kind of thing. So really trying to customize things. Fiesta District improvements, that was in the Mesa area near MCC on Southern Avenue. Stormwater harvesting, shade structures, really kind of livability. One of the big features there was a water harvesting bioswale for rainwater, and that is shown in the top right photo. There's a 8 to 12 foot kind of water harvesting there that accepts rainwater into the landscape zone, cleanses it, deep waters, and they've had real good success with their landscape there. That's LID, low impact development. Signage, custom shade systems, lots of different colored rock, color, internally illuminated things. And we could talk all night, and we won't do that to you, but certainly Kurt worked here in downtown on Florence Street here in Casa Grande, P83, downtown Gilbert. So really kind of customizing things, and we really are committed to doing that here for the master plan with Paul and Joseph. And so I will let Kurt get right into the specifics.
Hi, I want to just kind of take you through the project here a little bit and just kind of get you orientated. Like Jeff and Joe had mentioned, it's from Pinell to I-10, the Florence Boulevard corridor. In discussions with Paul and Joe, we've kind of broken this out into 3 different sections. We're calling the downtown, the midtown, and the freeway section. So those are the items in there. And then some of the elements to be evaluated is, we're going to be looking at the right-of-way, infrastructure, and then, like Jeff mentioned, the aesthetics and theming for the city of Casa Grande, to be specific. Lighting, shade, artwork, just like the things that we mentioned in the Chandler and Tolleson projects that we've done. So to zoom in a little bit closer, so we broke these out, like I mentioned, into downtown streetscapes. So on the left-hand side of the screen is the Pinell Avenue. That's it has a number 1 there. That would be a primary gateway, something that would blend in with the current underpass of the roadway or the railway. So that was just recently done by an artist there. Something that we could combine that into to kind of get a cohesiveness coming into the downtown area and through the Florence Boulevard area. We'd also have others, kind of secondary access and directional signage to get people into the downtown area and along through the corridor. So this is the Midtown area, and this is, we're kind of working back and forth with Joe and Paul on this and staff back at our office on what that's going to look like, right-of-way sizing, lane widths and things like that. We're working with Dwayne on that also, on the amount of traffic that's coming through here. So we have other gateways and pedestrian nodes or bump outs at some of the major intersections or at a mid-crossing also. So this is the Midtown from Treckle to approximately Arizola. We are kind of looking at possibly taking it to Hennessy, so. And then the freeway corridor. So this is from probably Hennessy to I-10, and we'd be looking at some of the same aspects here that we would in the corridor. And what we want to do is we want to make everything cohesive, and from one end to the other, there may be different elements here and there, but to give these corridors and the right-of-ways aspects and connectivity to the restaurants, the business owners, and the new residential that's coming in to these areas. So that's a brief overview of the overall project. Some of the things that we're looking at with staff and that will be taken out to the stakeholders and council and yourselves will be coming back with concepts and ideas to run by you at a future date coming up. But these will be some of the items that we're looking at. We're looking at what type of street lighting, what kind of street lighting goes down through the corridor. It's a little bit different between each of the divisions of the corridor itself and the zones. Some of the other items, like Jeff mentioned, paving. There's a lot of different types of paving that we can do, from the street intersections to the crosswalks. The one in the kind of lower, second one over from the right, shows a lot of different types of paving. There's concrete, there's brick patterns here, and then there's street print or street asphalt that you can do too, that imprints like brick and looks like brick in that area. So there's a lot of different aspects that we can look at and different elements to look at in pavers, concrete, colored concrete, and such. Here's some other site amenities. We'd be looking at concrete benches, other types of benches throughout the corridor, bike racks, and litter receptacles. One of the things that we look at closely is shade down the corridor, whether that's through trees, tree shade, or it's manufactured shade, shade sails, or some type of refuge while you're on the corridor. We'd also be looking at art and working with the Arts Commission and staff on is there abilities to do that. Like Jeff mentioned, there's in downtown Chandler, we created the benches, the seat walls for them, but then they had the Arts Commission and the artists come in and do different tiles. So each one of those is different. It could be a nice, unique thing throughout the corridor that we can implement. And Tolleson did the same too. They created a pedestal, but then gave the artists the ability to create something that would be put on top of that too. So there's a lot of different ideas that we can look at and explore. And then also, like I mentioned earlier, the primary signage and secondary signage. We want to look at that and how that works in the corridor and where those are placed. These are some of these are ones that we've done here around in the valley. Like Jeff mentioned, the P83, Tolleson, and the Fiesta District. Those are large entry monuments that would bring people in and give them an icon to direct them into the area. Here's some median treatments. So we're looking at medians within the corridor, and these are different types of treatments that we could do. There's the Z crossings in the upper middle picture. There's signage that we could do in there, and also planting. And as Jeff mentioned, taking the water off of that, and making an LID or a bioswale, or utilizing those elements for the median also. And it could also be on the outside of the roadway too. It's just something to theme everything all together in this area. So right now, this is kind of our timeline that we've set up here for this project. We've gone to council. We've kind of given them the same introduction that we did tonight here. So we've already done that, and we're coming to the planning and zoning. So we'll have other meetings here. We have a total of 3. We have the first meeting, which is tonight, kind of an introduction, and then we'll come back at another time to provide more input on the projects and the concepts that we come up with. And then we also have the proposed stakeholder meetings. So those are going to be upcoming. We're going to get the stakeholders together and the property owners and the business owners and kind of do the same thing that we would ask and get feedback from them on what they would like to see down through the corridor. And that's the end of our presentation for tonight. So trying to keep it short, but if anybody has questions or anything that we can answer for you, that would be great.
I mean, you did a lot on the city of Chandler, Mesa, other cities. Do you have a hard time working with the business owners and so forth, or because you're going to, on their property lines, what do you do? Well, how do you handle all that? As long as, I guess, the city's paying for it, they don't really care?
Well, no. No, actually, Jeff had a really good story in Chandler on that, you know, a lot of the business owners, I probably should let him talk about it a little closer, but, you know, they didn't want it. They didn't want the project. They were afraid that it was going to hurt business and everything. Well, once it got done, built, it was a different story. They loved it. They thought it was great. So I don't know, Jeff, if you have any other stories.
Yeah, a lot of it is a ground game. I think it's public involvement, public outreach, and really kind of, we do block meetings when things get in. This is just preliminary designs. This is the pretty picture. This is the master plan. So later there may be final design that would go into a final engineered project, but kind of that step-by-step block meetings, meeting and conveying exactly what you're trying to do and building consensus. It's tough work, but you know, we've done that in some tough environments. In downtown Tolleson, there were 7 different businesses that actually voluntarily gave up a driveway because of the overall good of what they saw was going on. So we never thought that was going to happen. You know, that seems almost impossible, but sometimes when you build momentum, it can be, good things can come from it.
We definitely need it.
Yeah, definitely.
And are you working on Pinell Avenue too? On, from the freeway that way? I heard that.
No, just Pinell, or Florence Boulevard from Pinell to the I-10, the 4-mile corridor. Sorry.
We are, after this project, we are hoping to carry over some of the theming and some of the elements onto Pinell Avenue. We are working on a signage for the main entrances as a separate design package, which will include the I-10 at Florence and then the I-10 at Pinell. And we might deem other areas as a signage opportunity to create an entrance feature, but that'll be a separate project. I think that'll kick off probably later this year or early next year.
You also probably need, is it ADOT for Pinell?
Yeah,
That's their road.
But as far as the entrance signage and stuff, that we'll work with the ADOT on some of that, but as far as Pinell goes, yeah, we would need to take it first.
All right. Well, thanks, guys.
Sure.
Thanks for being here.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
We got some reports. We appreciate it.
They need it.
No, we do. We
I've been
definitely
through
do.
that one in,
I wonder what the cost is.
I know.
I bet you. Florence Boulevard?
Okay.
I've been
We're good.
$50 million.
So, since your last meeting, City Council made decisions on 3 of the items that you referred to them. One is they approved the rezoning for the apartments on Courtson and Truckle. They also approved that little R2 zoning, if you recall, it was just for a very small piece of property that had been a remnant from one of the prior subdivisions. And then they also approved the subdivision variance for block length that was associated with the preliminary plat for, Carlton Commons, right? So that's the council decisions. You have your building permit report, and that's all I have to report this evening.
Need a motion? Motion?
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
I second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.